It's like if a cop pulls you over and just starts breaking your balls and fishing for shit. He's
And
not
you're not
doing his
black.
job. Right?
Wait a minute.
But that's not doing his job. That's being a ball breaker. That's going above and beyond.
Sure,
That's
yeah.
what this is doing.
Double whammy.
Matt in New York. Matt.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hey.
Yeah, that clergy thing is alive and well if you go into some of the darker neighborhoods. Like, I work in Brownsville, Brooklyn, and there's a church on, there's about 3 churches on every block.
Oh, yeah. They're all under investigation, by the way. That's like the Reverend Al.
But my dad never had an actual church.
Oh.
Filled out some forms. All of a sudden, he's some kind of church guy, and we didn't have to pay taxes on nothing.
Well, I don't see a single one of them ever open.
Double whammy.
Yeah, Yo Gabba Gabba. Yeah, they're good at.
Biz Markie was on Yo Gabba Gabba.
Oh, what'd he do?
They're good at coming up with songs that have 4 words, and then those 4 words are said over and over and over again.
I'm the beatboxer Biz Markie, and my cool trick is making more than one sound with my mouth at one time. Check it out. I'm Biz Markie, the human on I'm going to do it for you one more time, slower.
Can you do that?
Where's motherfucker Too Short?
I'm Biz Markie, and making more than one sound with my mouth is my cool trick. Bye-bye.
You got me. Oh, baby, you.
It's a good song.
It's great. He was trending on Twitter yesterday, and someone said his mouth looks like he has Brontosaurus DNA. I fucking
It really does.
I don't know the exact tweet. If you can find it real fast, Sav. But someone tweeted that his mouth is so brutal that he must have
Brontosaurus DNA.
Double whammy.
How about they stop if they didn't forgive the debt of other countries or whatever to get what we want, I wouldn't mind it as much. But knowing that like Pakistan and all these countries are getting millions of fucking dollars from us or whoever they just so they do what we want in the United Nations or with terrorism.
Oh, I know. We could have no deficit. We could be so prosperous if it wasn't for the way the government handles so much of this bullshit. Cut off these scab countries. Pick them and flick them. These fucking scab-ass shit countries like Pakistan. Fuck you, Pakistan. Fuck them.
That's a great campaign platform.
Yeah, I would run on that one in a second. Fuck Pakistan. Fuck every one of these shithole mud pies in Africa. Fuck them all. Why are we giving them money? It's going directly to some warlord with a machete clicking his way through his country and trying to kill everybody. Fuck them, too.
We should put the money in a rocket ship or something and send it up to let it go around in space.
It would be easier.
Space Bank
Chip,
or something.
thank you. Space Bank, I like it. Tired of it. God. I'm not doing my share.
Let me say
Fuck
hi
you,
to Ron
I
in
paid for
Boston.
half the Congo.
Context of white supremacy. Gus T. Renegade in for another program to share constructive information on racism, white supremacy, what it is and how it works. I want to get a quick second to dial our guest in with us for the program. Seems like we might have had some interference. Give me 1 second, and I will dial our guest. I'll see if I have a comment. Actually, I will play our commercial one more time to promote everyone who has been helpful with the cows. One more time, we'll be right back. Context of white supremacy.
RacismDaily.com, your number one source for global news reports on race, racism, and overt actions of white supremacy. From Asia to the Americas, to Europe, to Australia, to Africa, racism is not a thing of the past. It is our current reality. Be informed. Be globally informed. You should be the first to know. RacismDaily.com, RacismDaily.com, RacismDaily.com.
Is racism hurting you? On issues of race, are you unable to speak, think, and act with clarity and confidence? Are you tired of laughing when nothing is funny, smiling when you are not happy, agreeing when you really disagree? At counterracism.com, you can learn specific strategies and techniques to counter the behaviors of the people who practice racism in all areas of activity, using words correctly, following counter-racist logic, even counter-racist science projects designed to reveal what racism is, how it works, and how to counter it. The open source code writing format allows you to pick and choose from a variety of counter-racist suggestions so you can produce the code that works for you. Stop by counterracism.com today and help replace racism with justice.
That's counter-racism.com.
Context of white supremacy. Gusty Renegade in for another program. Thank you, everyone, for sharing your time and energy with us. I hope it is a constructive investment of your Wednesday evening. Today's date, July 20th, 2011. Want to hop right to it. Hopefully it will be a constructive broadcast. We had a listener. A program last week aired, and he was typing on the Facebook. He said, on my Facebook page, and he said that he used to be addicted to a talk radio program, the Opie and Anthony show. I had never heard of this program, didn't know anything about it, but he said that he used to be a big fan. He became more informed about racism, white supremacy. He began to grasp that, hey, this program is pretty racist, and as he became more informed, he just, it became more glaring what a trifling example of white supremacy this radio program is. And last week he actually called the program to challenge them on their racist behavior, and I thought it would be a great opportunity, a codification session, to not only analyze some of the content of this program, but to speak with the victim about what he used to enjoy about this program, his process of becoming less confused, and what it was like to, go back and challenge the suspected white supremacists after becoming less confused and realizing what they're all about. Hopefully it'll be constructive. I mean, I think some people that listen to this program, they do know about the Opie and Anthony show. I played a snippet at the beginning. We'll hear some more sound clips as we roll. But yeah, if you know about this program, should be interesting. Joining us live for the broadcast, black male, victim of white supremacy, our guest, Enel. Mr. Enel, are you with us?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Gus. Good evening, listeners and callers.
Outstanding. Thank you for sharing a bit of your time with us. Hope it will be constructive. If there's anything you would like to share with listeners that you think might be constructive for them to know before we get started, please feel free, sir.
Well, nothing you really haven't touched on, but as you said, I was a fan of the show for a long time. I would say I was white identified from what I've come to learn since listening to the cows. But that's really just about it. Any questions you might have, I can answer. Just that's it, sir.
Okay. You are a black male, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. This program, the context of white supremacy, I have concluded that we are in a global system of racism, white supremacy. I use those two terms as synonyms. I use the same definition for both terms. Definition that I use is as follows. A global system of people who classify themselves as white and are dedicated to abusing and or subjugating everyone in the known universe whom they classify as not white. Do you believe that such a system exists, and do you think that definition is accurate?
Well, some years ago, I'd have probably challenged that definition, but since I've really looked at the evidence and really looked around myself and just asked myself some questions, and I've concluded that, yes, we are in a system of racism and white supremacy in which white people who classify themselves as white operate in concert to maintain the power equation of white over non-white. So, yes, I do agree with that definition.
Okay. I'm reading directly from the Facebook page from last week, what you wrote. And you already said, this is from last week, that you were very confused when you were first listening to the Opie and Anthony show. You said I was completely white identified and I loved to laugh. And for whatever reason, I enjoyed that kind of humor, in quotes. Most of all, I feel sick when I think about it now. I guess if we could kind of go one by one, can you give us a little more detail about this white identification? How were you white identified? How was that? If you could just give us more details about how that was manifested specifically.
As long as I can remember growing up, I gravitated more towards what white people were into. You know, I mean, I remember being very young, and I can remember maybe 5th grade, and I used to hang out with these two young white boys. I considered them at the time my best friends. But only in school. I never hung out outside of school, but whenever we was in school together, I was always the three of us together. And the thing, we were all into video games and trading cards. I remember there was these weird dinosaur trading cards back then when I was that young, where these dinosaurs were just mutilating and mauling people, and I loved them. And the three of us, we would trade these cards and stuff like that. It wasn't like I didn't want nothing to do with black people. It was just there are a lot of things black people were into, so-called black people, were into. I really didn't want to get involved. I didn't dance. I wasn't heavy into music like that. You know, I was more, I guess for cerebral, if you will, meaning I cared more about how smart I think I felt amongst black people. And I always felt like as long as I was hanging out with white people and learning what they were learning and putting myself within their interests, then I would feel smarter. And I could be honest and say that when I was around black people, I felt, dumb. Because black people, like I said, growing up, all they thing they did was dancing and just crack jokes on each other. So I always gravitated more towards white people. I used to love watching the movies, and I know I could watch a movie, and I could go to one of these white boys and we could talk about the movie and laugh and talk about the video games and the comic books and stuff like that. Black people just didn't really interest me in that regard, but I never really had no interest to hang out with white people. I was more of a loner in that aspect, but like I said, in school or if I'm working, I tended to gravitate more towards white people because, as I said, they're talking on something. Their subject they're talking on is different, and I always honestly felt like I was learning something compared to when I hung around black people.
Very interesting. I have heard that before, and I would say that is a part of racism, white supremacy. An integral aspect of white supremacy. White people have groomed us, the victims, they are victims, to not function in a constructive manner, to have just deplorable relationships with one another, talking bad about each other, and celebrating these dysfunctional relationships. All of that to blame racist man, racist woman. Okay, so that's the white identification portion of it. You said you loved to laugh, and for whatever reason, you enjoyed the Opie and Anthony kind of humor. Can you give us some more detail on that?
Their humor, it was just, how can I explain? I was thinking about it all day because I knew this question was going to come up. But their humor just seemed more, it was just different. as I said, generally speaking, like growing up, the black humor really was just more black people are this, black people are that. Your mama is this, your mama is that. You know, and their humor, it touched on a whole range of topics, at least in my opinion. It touched on a whole range of things I normally think about that I really couldn't talk to black people about, that I wanted to talk to, but I always, like, one thing about me, I was teased growing up. They used to, oh, you talk like a white guy, you talk like a white guy. So I kind of ostracized myself from really engaging in any real intellectual or any real conversation with most black people. So I pretty much just stayed the course of whatever being black means at that time. But when I listen to their show and they're talking about all these different things and making fun of it, and that it was just like, wow, this is something new to me. I felt like my mind was actually learning something. You know, I'm not going to sit there and say, I'm not going to make any excuses as to what they did or what they say. It's just, again, as I said, very confused at the time, but I felt like I was actually learning something, you know. And at the time, with the show, it was very interesting, at least to me. Right before I started listening to the show, I actually had a friend of mine lend me a color, the ISIS papers. And prior to that, I always questioned, like, I always looked at white people kind of differently, but I couldn't put my finger on it until I got a copy of the ISIS papers. And then it was like, okay, everything started to make sense to me. I still didn't understand the system of racism, white supremacy, but now it's more like looking at white people as far as their behavior goes. And it wasn't, and honestly, I wasn't even looking at their behavior in relationship to black people. It was just like, just the things white people do and why they do it. And what really sucked me into the show was, like I said, one of the first shows I listened to after receiving the ISIS papers, they were discussing how white males, these white men on the show were discussing that, how inadequate they feel about their girlfriends going to Jamaica, to places like Jamaica, and all the big black this and that and the third they kept talking about, and then they started joking about that and making fun about that and this and that and the third. And I thought that was very interesting. And I was like, okay, I have it felt like I had a door into the white mind, because I'm actually listening to what Dr. Wilson has mentioned in her book, and now I'm actually getting confirmation from it from white people themselves. But I still never made the connection between the system of racism and white supremacy. It was just, okay, I'm learning about white people. You know, I'm not seeing the connection. Okay, well, white people like to make fun of black people. You know what I'm saying? I never looked at it anymore as mistreatment, because, as I said, black people, for as long as I can remember, did the same. They interacted with each other the same way, making fun of each other. And then I hear these white boys making fun of each other, and then they'll make fun of black people. So it's kind of like, okay. So I didn't really think too much of it. But every time, once in a while, I hear something racist, and my gut would be like, but I kind of just pushed it aside and just continued to listen to the program.
About how long, I guess, were you listening to this program when you were more confused about racism and white supremacy?
I started listening to the show back in, I believe it was 2001. Prior to that I heard the show once. I was with a female, and she was listening, a Hispanic female, and she was listening to the show in the car. And the first show I ever heard of them, they had a song called Drown, Drown, Cuban, Drown, Drown, Cuban, Drown. Kind of like that Beach Boys song, I get around, whatever. And the reason for the song was the most offensive song contest. And the song was in reference to back in, I believe it was 99, with the Elian Gonzalez thing, if you remember, the young Cuban boy who made it to Miami or Florida, and his family drowned, and his father took him, and there was this whole custody thing between Cuba and America and yada, yada, yada. I didn't pay that much close attention to it, but I think that's just like the gist of it. When the police finally the Fed, white enforcement officials finally kicked in the door and snatched his kid and sent him back to Cuba. So that was like my first time ever hearing them. And later on listening to them, they made reference to that contest, and they had songs called, and this one my mind started really start pulling it back away from them and started really trying to analyze what was really going on. So they had songs like Baby Raper and songs that made reference to lynching black people, and they was laughing and giggling about all this mess. And I kind of was like, okay, I gotta fall back and really look at what I'm getting into here.
Did I hear that correctly? You said you I guess began listening to the program 2001. That was when you first kind of started listening to it with a so-called Hispanic female?
Yes.
Okay. This Hispanic female, was she a white person?
Well, when I think about it now, she kind of could pass for white. And she, well, like I said, she was into the show and she was into all that typical, I guess you could say typical white girl stuff. And she was digging all of that stuff. And that's it. That's for, I never asked her. She's like, her last name was Hispanic. I can't remember what it was. And she told me she was Hispanic, but everything she seemed to be into was lean, like I said, was more white identified.
I was thinking, when you said typical white girl stuff, I was thinking it might be more accurate to say typical racist stuff. But
yeah.
You know,
I understand.
Very interesting. Very interesting. And it seems like, if I'm understanding correctly, from the time 2000, 2001, when you first started listening to this program, it seems like at some level you knew they are doing and saying some racist things. It didn't.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, absolutely. As I said, it was more, honestly, like I said, I'm not gonna act like I didn't enjoy the show. I did enjoy the show, but a lot of it was more like to alleviate whatever boredom I had at the time. You know, it was like, okay, because I was back in that day, I was commuting between New York City and Long Island back and forth to work every day. So in the evening, that show used to come on in the evenings, and I used to listen every day. So it became like a habit. And then what happened was it became such a habit for me that they eventually moved to satellite radio after they got kicked off of regular radio after some concerts they had involving people having sex in public places and then one of the couples had sex in one of New York's famous cathedrals, St. Patrick's Cathedral, and people got caught having sex there. There was a big scandal in New York City for a week or two, and eventually they got fired. And I actually was so upset when they got fired from the show. I was like, oh, no, what am I going to do this afternoon? And I was working as a security guard at the time, so it was like, okay, I could do my security shift. I'm going to sit here and listen to Opie and Anthony. I got some weed in my pocket. I'm going to have a good night. But then that happened, and they got kicked off the air, and I was very upset for like 2 years, so they finally came back. I believe they got kicked off in 2002. 2004, I believe they came back and announced their return to satellite radio. And I went out there. I think I bought maybe 3 satellite receivers, and now the show was on all day. So now they had their own channel. So they pretty much ran the show all day. So now I'm just listening to the show all day. Now I'm going to work listening to the show. I get home, I'm listening to the show, and I'm listening to the show for whatever reason. It was like almost 12 hours a day just listening to this program. And, yeah, that's it. That's, like I said, the show was an obsession for me. Hello?
Oh, yes, sir. I'm just, wow. I was letting that sink in.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I am reminded of a listener. He might not even be listening anymore. Long-time listener. He had commented about Revenge of the Nerds, and he said he used to love that movie. It was one of his favorite films. And when he became less confused about white supremacy, he began to see how that film is just saturated in racism, white supremacy, and denigrating black people. And I think a lot of victims have a very similar experience. I know I do, with just being obsessed with content, material, books, films, whatever, people, white people, I mean, that is just totally racist. I think all of us, have been in that boat, unfortunately. Yeah. Wow.
Okay.
Go ahead.
As I was saying, when my confusion started to lessen, I started to realize I was starting to get really sick and tired of the nonsense. And this wasn't the first time I actually called the show. This is the first time I've called the show since I started listening to the C.O.W.S and started becoming more codified. When I used to call the show prior to that, I probably called the show maybe 4 or 5 times prior to this. I started to understand the system of racism or white supremacy, but I could not articulate it. And my argument, and whenever I called, and you listen to the clip, you see how antagonistic and how angry one of the hosts gets. And my argument, for some reason, always dwell into that whole we were kings and queens argument. I used to I read a lot about Black history, and so-called Black history. Well, And I used to get it used to always delve into that whole, oh, white people came from us and y'all are cave dwellers and this and that and the third. And I realized it really wasn't doing anything until I listened to Mr. Fuller talk recently over the last 7 months. And he said, no, if you're going to challenge white people, you challenge them about the system. And I realized that made more sense than sitting there talking about we were once kings and queens and da-da-da-da, you people came from the caves or whatever, because white people know all that stuff, and they don't care what's going on now.
What I would love, I wish I had some audio files of when you called in before and used to, give them the whole kings and queens. How did they respond? Like, what would they say when you would, get on all that to them?
It'll get mocking. They'll just start mocking me. And then I'll really have no defense after that. So I didn't know what kind of questions to ask. I was just really more just running off of just fuel in my gut, like, I don't like what you're saying, and I'm going to put you white people in the place and show you that you ain't nothing because you genetically we're stronger than you because of color and skin color. It wasn't. I never really put any thought into anything I was going to say or even ask. So I just ran off my gut with that mess and just blah 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 blah. And then recently, though, maybe within the last year or two, I started, especially when Barack Obama became president, I started to really learn how to talk to him. And I remember one of the conversations we had, I called, and they were talking, of course, about Barack Obama, and the main one you could hear in the audio, he's carrying on. He has this fire in his gut about Barack. So I called him, and I explained, now I remember exactly what he was saying. They were saying, all the progress black people made, why they still complain they got a black president. So I called the show and I said, whatever, and that's pretty much was like any progress, any so-called progress that you're saying that we made, we only made it as a result of what white people legislated. I wasn't using the term racist. I didn't quite understand the system of racism, white supremacy, but I knew at the same time that Barack Obama or anything black people have achieved is only been achieved because white people put it into law, so to speak. So I remember that argument we got into, and of course he shout me down, and then I completely lose focus, and I get angry and start yelling, and we start screaming, and it always delved into that.
Wow, very interesting. Wow, I want to go back because I have some clips. I have the clip of when you called the program last week and challenged them on being racist white supremacists. I also have some additional audio clips of things that they had said earlier in the same program, so people can get a nice flavor for things that they had to say during the entire broadcast. I played a few snippets earlier that were also from that same program, so you'll get an idea of the type of comments that they make about black people and how they responded to our guest. You said about 6 months ago, if I got it correctly, that's when you started to get less confused about racism, white supremacy as a system. Can you kind of walk through a little bit of that process just in terms of things that helped you?
Well, what happened was I remember, I was listening to their program up until Christmas, and then they took a week off for Christmas, so I stopped listening to the program. So I started listening. I remember I had some audio of Dr. Welsing on my iPod. So I started listening to that, and my mind just started shifting more and more towards that. And I got to the point like, I just want to find more audio of Dr. Welsing. So I started looking for more audio of Dr. Welsing, which led me to the C.O.W.S. And I started downloading all of that audio of Dr. Welsing. Then eventually, I can't remember exactly, but somehow, some way, I found the audio of Mr. Fuller. And once I found his audio, it was like I can't go back to what I was listening to before because everything Mr. Fuller was saying was just like, my mind was just like, wow, And from that point on, it was all I wanted to do was just digest everything Mr. Fuller had to say. And then eventually I started listening to Dr. Cambon, Dr. Baruti, and many other guests you had on your program. And my mind just started gravitating more to that. And honestly, I completely forgot about Opie and Anthony until recently because I recently just lost my job, and I was staying at home, and it was just like, let me just listen to this show. I haven't listened to it in a while. And I started listening, And as soon as the racist joke started, I was just like, you know what, I gotta say something. And if you listen to the clip, you hear me say I haven't listened to you guys in a while because they became familiar with me, you know. And that's pretty much what it is. Just listening to the audio of Mr. Fuller and Dr. Wilson and many of these other guests you had on the program just started making me look at the world a little different. I ain't gonna say stop thinking. I actually started thinking and just started looking around and I was quiet. I said, let me be quiet for a minute and just look. And I looked away at the relationship that white people on my job at the time I had with and how they interacted, and I started looking at that and everything, and I started noticing certain little things, how white people would behave compared to how black people would behave. And like I noticed this before years ago, as I said, but this time I started really paying attention to it. And I seen like this way these white people would move, like the supervisors at my job. For instance, these a couple of black workers, they'll get into an argument over whatever reason, as far as the job is concerned. And they're white, and the supervisor will look at them and he'll just stand there. He wouldn't say nothing. He's just looking at them. And I said, these two people have been working under this white guy for so many years. He knows what they do on a daily basis. Why is it now that all of a sudden they're confused as to what they got to do, and he's not saying a word? So that's little things like that I started really looking at, you know. And then at the same time, I started listening to the way how white people, whenever the topic of racism came up, they automatically deflected and try to say, no, it ain't about racism, it's about greed, it's about money, and yada yada yada. And like these are things I learned listening to Mr. Fuller and Dr. Wilson, and like I said, many other guests, how refinement. And these things started to really click and make sense to me. If something really makes sense, I always feel like if it makes sense to me, I'm not going to question it. And I never question when I see these things going on. It was like, damn, that makes absolutely sense. 2 + 2 = 4. That's how I started seeing everything.
Context of white supremacy. I want to play a clip just to kind of give people a little more flavor of the Opie and Anthony show for folks if you haven't heard it. I want to give them a little taste, and then we'll play the audio of when you called in, so you can kind of share some thoughts about, you know, how it went down, if this is a deviation from what it used to sound like when you called the program. This is clip number 1 before you called in, but it's the same program. This aired last Tuesday, I believe, which would be
July.
It was
last Tuesday.
Okay, yeah, July 12th that this was live. I'm not sure if you can go on their site and download it or whatever. Yeah, I don't know anything about that. At any rate, this is from that same program. It's earlier before our guest dialed in, and just to give you a little bit of a sampling of the Opie and Anthony show.
Bosses are watching it? Is that what you meant? See, because they're babies.
Did you just mention the bosses?
For a second. Oh, shit. How long?
If we go to breaks, they're not too bad.
Yeah.
You know that one of the bosses?
Uh-oh.
See, you can't mention bosses.
One of the bosses what?
Just don't do it.
It just popped out.
What happened?
He's on an African safari as we sit here and sweat for this fucking company.
Really?
Yes. Oh,
good. It's great for us.
Yeah, it is great for us.
Wait, which boss?
Yeah.
Oh,
it's not important to be here. The whole company's falling apart.
Lions.
I need to be on an elephant checking out fucking lions.
Well, trying
safari.
Trying to negotiate his way out of warlords beheading him. You did not hear. No, I got it.
In some big black steel pot with fire burning under it as they're cooking him. I got it.
Jimmy, you have to talk to the attorneys. Talk to the lawyers.
Jimmy and I just saved my bad mood. I'm not officially in a bad mood.
What are you doing? The water's getting hot.
The vision of him in a big fucking pot is
a pot.
You know what this tribe needs? To be marketed better.
Yeah. What do we got? I know it's going to work. We'll get something together with you guys.
I want to get the warlords, and I want to get them some wireless microphones.
Yeah.
I want them in the middle of the Serengeti.
How does this sound to you? Savage 202. Well, I'm going to give you your own channel.
Yeah. That'd be great. You could do the behead, the declittings live on the air. No, I got it. It'd be great.
The lawyers won't allow that, sir. Yeah.
Is this from Yo? That would be Yo. I would so want to do that show.
What?
Yo.
Can't hear you.
I'm not gonna say it.
Yo,
Used in a derogatory way.
NN?
Yes.
But the
same songs. And
but the
same
spelling
characters.
where it won't get your teeth knocked out, right?
Of course, yes.
Because then it would go with GABA.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be hilarious.
This is the joyous music of yes, clitoral circumcision.
Yes.
Oh, they were fitty.
Oh, that's good that you got a shower. That's good. that looks natural.
Now Jimmy's pissed.
That looks natural and comfortable.
Good. That looked like a robbery in progress.
That looks good.
Boss with fitty scent.
That's cool. That's what people want to see.
What's wrong with that?
No, it's great. That's exactly. That looks right. That doesn't look like an executive just fucking pushing his face in where it doesn't belong. That looks good. Very natural.
It's all right. The signal doesn't hit Africa.
Yeah.
This is very uncomfortable to be in such a good mood. You got to stop.
Oh.
You mentioned bosses, though. What
He's probably buying a bunch of blood
Boy,
diamonds.
that's good. There's a picture of fucking.
He's probably getting a bunch of blood diamonds so he could give it to Howard.
Yeah, he demanded them. That's great.
Oh, that's cool. There's Bladder about to be attacked. Great is that shot of Bladder trying to have his like hoodie on and look like one of the gangbangers.
Yeah.
Oh, Bladder.
What's that a picture with?
50 Cent and his crew.
45.
And the whole crew?
Oh, is that 50 Cent?
G-Unit.
Just 50 Cent.
That's not Shade 45 because I don't see Eminem in that picture.
Oh, well, let's see. He
Oh, that's
shows
right.
up once.
Yeah, he wasn't there for that.
He has never been in this building since
He's
we
like
started
he's like
broadcasting.
Haley's Comet.
Why we do
Every
this?
75 years, you might see him.
You think that Steve talks to the Shade people the same way? They say something,
I don't think so.
or they say something, and his answer is
just a wrinkled nose and a nod.
Are you saying that's what he does?
Yeah,
Is that his tell?
and I know that nobody can see
tell.
this, but he just
Is that his
it's
tell?
Yeah.
We know Scott's tell is I got it, which means he doesn't got it at all.
I got it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Scott. Oh, I didn't think of that.
Wow.
So
Oh man.
yeah, I guess he's in Africa for a couple weeks.
All right.
Doing a safari.
Yeah,
We're better
there you
off,
go.
certainly.
A little malaria.
Yeah. He's trying to get the Amistad rebuilt.
Where can I send some?
He's talking to the guys who built the Amistad. He's like, how did you get him to sign contracts for that kind of money?
Yeah, come on, tell me what. Oh, please.
You think he shits diamonds?
No.
No, over there, it's gonna be shitting fucking water. I can't imagine what it would be like to. You're gonna get sick.
Probably, yeah. Although you get a lot of shots going over there too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you certainly hope so.
Yeah. Right now, I hope for his sake there isn't a mosquito that just fucking bit some tribesman and then lands on him.
Oh,
Here you go.
Here, take this with you.
You have a little malaria. I got it. Yes, you do.
I got it.
Malaria.
I've heard a rumor. Is he over there, or are we just making all this up? He is over there.
I'd be scared to go there, to be honest.
Africa.
Although the amount of money he has, he's going on a probably
He's
safari
going
that's
like
safe. Yeah.
Or like the Ivory Coast.
I wouldn't want to go.
Double whammy.
Let me say hi to Clinton in Virginia. Clinton.
Hey guys, just pull up. I'm so glad I've got skin.
What?
It's about a guy with an unclipped cock. He's peeling his foreskin back and forth over the head of his dick, and it's making the fruit roll-up sound. I'm so glad I got skin. And then the circumcised cock is looking all silly and cold.
Oh my God!
I figured we could do something with this today.
This is I can't.
Oh, this guy howled when you said. This guy cried when Ant said the dildo beat the miscarriage, or bit. It should be, I guess. Yeah. Why?
It's no. I wouldn't be able to watch this.
I make I'm so glad I got hair, I got hair, I got hair. I'm so glad I got hair. Will feel mighty funny with nothing up there. Nothing up there, nothing up there. Feel mighty funny with nothing up there.
Nothing down there, nothing down there.
I'm so glad I got eyes, I got eyes, I got eyes. I'm so glad I got eyes. When I get sad, I can always cry, always cry.
What about people with no eyes?
Exactly.
I can't wait till they get to that other part.
I know. I'm so glad I got melanin. I'm so glad I got melanin.
I'm so glad I got a nose, even though it looks like one of my toes. One of my toes.
Let's be honest, the nose is a little bigger.
One of my toes. Yeah. I'm so glad I got teeth. I got teeth. I got teeth.
So am I. At least we can see you at night.
There's so many good things to read.
I'm so glad I got a caddy. I'm so glad. 1970s stereotyping. I'm so glad I can dance naturally. I'm so glad I can run real fast.
I'm so glad I got feet. I got feet. I got feet.
I'm so glad they don't fail me now.
Running, jumping, skip down the street. Skip down the street.
Oh,
skip down the street.
Jesus.
Running, jumping, skip down the street.
Yes, Jimmy.
I'm so glad.
I'm so glad.
Oh, what?
Oh, you want?
Oh,
I'm so glad I got skin. That's what keeps my insides in.
Yeah. Inside in. I just wish it was white.
I'm so glad I got a face. I got a face. I got a face. I'm so glad I got a face.
Why didn't police always squirt it with mace?
Why do people yell things about my race?
Human race, human race. I am a member of the human race.
At least for a couple of 100 years.
I'm so glad I got a gun. I'm so glad I got a
gun. Wow.
Double whammy.
Context of white supremacy, the return of the double whammy. It has been a long time since I've had my whammy effect. Is that, I guess before we hop in, I want to be very clear. In addition to suspecting that the white people who are affiliated with this program are racist white supremacists, I strongly suspect that. I also suspect that these people are gay. The amount of attention on the genitals, testicles, it's overflowing. And I think, I guess he already talked about them having explicit conversations about feeling sexually inadequate with regards to their white women going to sexually sewer black males in a different area of the world. So I just want to put that out there. I also suspect that these folks are involved in anti-sexual behavior. And Dr. Welsing moments abound. You have any thoughts on that clip?
Yeah, it reminds me of a lot of things I like. Like I said, some years ago, I would have laughed at a lot of what was going on. But back to what you were saying as far as the anti-sexual thing, they also joke. I don't want to say joke, but they also talk a lot about having sex with underage girls. I mean, they'll say, one of them would say something like, "Oh, my girlfriend's whatever," and then he'd just say, "Oh," someone would joke and say, "Oh, you must have just dropped her off at preschool or something." And then they'll just say, "Oh, well, you got me." It's just a lot of jokes about pedophilia and their involvement in it. They're not like they joke about having sex with little girls, and this is like a daily thing. Everything you heard right there is what goes on every single day on that show, and they get paid millions to do it every single day. So that's why when I listen to the show, I say I'm not missing nothing. I didn't miss a single thing in the last 6-7 months. And that's what this show is all day, every day. And they have this habit of when they could talk about any little thing and somehow it will always draw into making fun of black people. And the one particular white male racist that I got into it, he is like, as soon as anything, you heard what he said about the teeth, you know, he's quick. He immediately comes with something. The whole room bursts with laughter, and the callers will call in and they add their 2 cents in, and it's a daily thing, and they get paid millions and upon millions to do it. So what you heard there is like I said, it's a daily thing. They make the jokes about the white women wanting black males, and they joke about white women wanting black males, but then they'll joke about themselves wanting young little girls or wanting other men or something. But they really would, and if they do talk about being with women, with white women of their own age, it's always a complete, like, a raping of the woman. There's never this mutual thing with the woman. It's always this raping. Somehow they have to either humiliate the woman or humiliate themselves when they're talking about a woman of their own, within their own peer, I guess you'd say peer group. But they, like I said, they always go back to the pedophilia and the racism. And that's pretty much it. No matter what they're talking about, it will always dwell into that. And they'll sit there. I remember one time, one of them said, and whenever I say one of them, it's always that one. The one you hear me going back and forth with the clip is mostly him all the time. He actually got on the air one day and had to correct his, like, nobody said nothing. He was just like, oh, listen, the gorilla in the commercial with the luggage, it was actually American Tourister. It wasn't Samsonite. Like, he had to correct people because he'll make a joke. Like, they look at the news all day, every day, while they're doing their show. And the news will probably just be doing a story about airport security, right? And they'll probably, and you know, the news just shows footage, whatever, and there'll probably be a black male or a black person, any black person, just grabbing their luggage, and then he'll just say, oh, I thought that was a new Samsonite commercial. In reference to this old commercial back in the day of a gorilla pounding on the luggage or something to prove how tough the luggage was. And he always that's like one of his favorite references. But like I said, that's pretty much what the show is every day, all day. And I'm just like, I'm listening to it now like, wow. Seeing it completely different now.
Planet of the Apes, I believe the new movie is coming out next month, August 5th.
Oh, yeah, that's another thing. That particular one racist is obsessed with Planet of the Apes. You know, he argues. He does a Charlton Heston impression, and he loves the show. He loves that Planet of the Apes movie, and he can't stop talking. He's excited about this new one. In fact, last week they had a black male on there who was guest hosting on the show with them, and they both with everybody in the studio. The black male mentioned that he's all excited about the new Planet of the Apes. And then I'm serious. And this whole discussion about Planet of the Apes, and I'm just looking there, listening, like, wow, really? And like I said, since learning about racism and white supremacy over the last 6 months, really understanding again, I just looked at it and was like, this brother's completely confused. And he's just in there just laughing and giggling about Planet of the Apes and going, and it's just, I don't know, it's just the most weirdest thing to me for him to just be. He seems like, I've heard him. He's been on the show more than once. He seems to be a very smart person. I just don't think he knows how to really address the system of racism and white supremacy. Because he'll ask certain questions, and the one racist will always just kind of like brush it off as sort of that's just the way people are, and this and that, and because people see people as different. And he'll give them these really weird answers that really don't mean nothing, and he just sit, and the black gentleman would just sit there and just go, yeah, I guess you're right. And that's how it is all the time. In fact, he said the only reason the racist said that black guy is the only guy he could listen to talk about racism because that black gentleman doesn't put all the onus of racism on white people. You know, he said he understands that black people need to be responsible and this and that and the third. So that's how he claims he's like his only black friend. He invites him over to the house and they talk about the house and they talk about all kinds of stuff. Yeah. I listened to the show for almost about 10 years, so I've absorbed a lot, just, you know.
Wow. Context of white supremacy. One of the things, he touched on the callers. I believe in the clip that I played at the very beginning of the program, callers were dialing in and also, contributing to the racist content of the program. And I think that is significant because, at least to me, that suggests that white people understand this is an environment where racism is okay. It's all right for me to call. In fact, it is accepted and it will be cheered if you contribute to the racist content of the programming. It seems like that is understood amongst the white listeners. I mean, according to your 10-year history, is that accurate?
That's absolutely accurate. They'll call and they'll say, like, I learned about the expression Mondays listening to that show. I learned what the expression chimp out means. And they would take just little things that a black person might just be doing. Like, for example, one day I said they keep the news on, and one day apparently the news must have been somewhere where black people were knitting. So all of a sudden now they're knitters. And there's this whole joke came, knitters. I don't want knitters in my neighborhood. Knitters this and knitters that. Knitters. For like 20 minutes, they went on this whole knitters tirade. And they always do stuff like that. And then, of course, the callers would call in, they'll add their 2 cents in. And the caller would sit there and say how they practice racism against non-white people around them. You know, certain things. And it's just, and I listened to this, and I said, more and more I started to realize, like, as I said, white people work in concert. You know, and as soon as they'll allow the floodgates to open, the white people's races. I remember one time, I actually went to one of their events. They had a St. Patrick's Day event at one of the bars in New York City. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go, whatever. I'm gonna go hang out, drink, whatever, chill. And they was like, all right, now you come upstairs, and whoever got the best jokes wins, whatever. And it's like, you can say whatever you want. So the first few jokes were, I guess you could say, safe. Not even racist, but just typical jokes. And then one person came up and went racist, and nobody said nothing. They just stopped them and be like, oh, no, you can't say that out loud, da-da-da-da-da. And the floodgates opened. And when I say the flood, everybody, maybe one, if 2 people followed that one racist who started the whole thing, came up with all of it, with just racist material back. And I was just sitting there, and I felt so uncomfortable. I just stood there for a minute. I drank, chilled for a little while. I said, you know, I'm out of here. Like, and like I said, and I realized when white people have that opportunity to be as racist as they want to be, there's no stopping them. There is no stopping them. They had to, at one point they had to just shut the whole contest down because that's all that was coming out was these racist jokes. The most, like I said, the most horrid jokes ever. And I wasn't even laughing. I'm just looking at them puzzled, like, damn, this is what y'all like to do. This is fun. But again, I still continue to listen to the show and support the show by paying for my subscription to Satellite Radio. So but I know better now. And like I said, they allowed the callers to call in, and they'll always try to play the role like, oh, you can't say that. But then again, they completely support it. They support it 100%. Like I said, I learned many races. Chimp out. I heard chimp out from the one racist on the show. He always go when he wants to say something that is blatantly racist. He codes himself. But I always figure out what he's talking about after listening to the show for so long. I come to figure out when he's being racist, he'll code himself, and I'm like, okay, I know what you're trying to say. That's how I learned what chimp out meant and many other racist expressions.
Context of white supremacy, I definitely wanted to make sure that I got in the religion of white supremacy, always lucrative.
Mm-hmm.
I have the clip of your dial-in. I just wanted to get in the word for this program. Pay particular attention, fertility. Fertility. That is the word of the day. I'm reminded of Pam. Just keep that in mind. Fertility. My comment for the clip. I'm reminded of Michael Bradley and his concept of sexual dimorphism to explain the conflict between white males and white females, and that producing a lot of the, I guess, aggression, tension, awkwardness, and inadequacy that white people display around sexual intercourse. That is just leaping out at me every time I hear them talk. That's really all I have to say. If there's anything you would like to share before we get to this clip, anything?
No, I haven't listened to it. I haven't heard it since that morning, so I'm kind of like, nigga, I'm thinking like, damn, did I say anything that made me look stupid? That's what I'm really thinking. So you can play it.
I do not think you said anything to make you sound stupid. I think this is, I would say my gauge, listen to the white people, the suspected white supremacists. Do they sound like they are becoming less codified, angry, trifling? That's what I would say. Pick up on that great clip. This is the same program, our guest for today's program, dialing in to challenge Opie and Anthony.
Coop thinks our racism is going strong. He hasn't heard us in a while.
Oh, cool.
We haven't even been racist lately.
Thanks, man.
We don't have time for Coop.
No.
What's sort of talk about race?
I figured we'd leave a little time on his calling card. What?
My calling card, Mr. Cunha. God damn.
Well, listen to your phone.
I haven't heard you listen to you guys in about 6 months.
Oh,
This
shit.
is my third day listening, and I'm thinking Anthony softened a little bit, so I heard him this morning. I said, oh, shit.
Yeah, I was thinking I was softening, too, a little bit, so I really poured it on.
What did Ant say? Maybe I'm just, immune to this at this point. What did he say that was so bad today?
And
that goes, by the way, hold on, Coop. I'm going to challenge you right now. What did Anthony say that was racist that goes beyond... Hold on! That goes beyond humor.
Look, it's not. I'm not challenging your humor. I'm not saying don't say it.
That's why I'm asking the
fact
question,
that
sir.
It's racism.
All right, what was it?
It's racist.
Right.
I would never say to anybody, don't say nothing. You know what I'm saying? I would never be like, you shouldn't say, you shouldn't say that. That's not me.
Yeah.
Say what you want, but if I figure if I'm doing the one eyebrow raise when I hear a white guy say something, that means I suspect it's racist.
But mine's comedy racism.
That's right.
Everyone knows I'm goofy and stupid, and I go home and drink a little too much. I drive too fast. I'm irresponsible. I'm self-centered, and then I take all that and we make fun of it here. But how about then I take another part of me, maybe my fear of certain ethnic backgrounds, and then I change that into comedy. What about that? That's not okay though. But everything else that I goof on myself, when I goof on myself about, that's fine. But when I goof on anything that maybe hits home to you,
I never said anything.
Anything that hit a little too close to projects.
The project.
See, get it? Too close to home?
You can't help it.
I didn't get it.
I'm fucking with you, man. I'll be fucking with you. Yeah?
I'm just, look, like I said, the African pot thing, when you said the big black pot and then you followed it with savages, that was enough for me. I said, listen, I have to say something.
But that came from cartoons.
I'm going to explain.
Okay, go ahead.
But that's Africa.
I listen to white people talk.
By the way, we're watching an elephant get fucking chopped into tiny little pieces as Coop is talking about.
Yeah.
With axes, by the way.
So what happened, though? What about the big pot?
I've come to understand white people code, and certain words you say are straight just mean niggas without saying niggas. Savage.
No. I use the word savage for people that act like savages.
Don't you dare take savage.
See, you can't turn that around. You can never turn that around. Don't take savage from me, please. I love using that. I yell at cab drivers. And call them savage. I don't even know where they're from.
And we're looking at a video right now. How would you describe that?
Ants pulling apart a cricket. That's what it looks like.
But it's a bunch of...
Well, these are a bunch of people in Africa ripping apart an elephant carcass and leaving nothing.
Ripping it apart, by the way. No organization whatsoever.
No. So what were you saying, sir? I'm sorry.
Like I said, you made the same reference about ants pulling apart a cricket to black people.
But
I want to know...
I've said that.
I understand humor and understand, and we live in a context of racism, white supremacy. So
What?
I get all of that shit.
Do we?
Yes.
Oh.
White people dominate everything. That's racism.
I don't think so. Well, we've done a pretty good job with this country, to tell you the truth.
Prove to me where white people don't dominate. Let me ask you this question.
Well, I think white people being in charge of the country here has done pretty good over the past couple of hundred years. What, the world?
I'm not talking about the sir. I'm not talking about the country. I'm talking about the world.
The world? How is white people? White people are the minority in this in the world. White people are the minority in this world.
Okay, I know that. I'm not denying that.
So what the fuck? How can you be a supremacist? That must mean white people are amazingly smart and intuitive, ingenuity.
Divide and conquer.
What?
Deception. You use deception and you divide and conquer.
Deception, divide, and conquer.
Yes.
Why don't you got? Well,
that's how you control a large group of people. Is you confuse them and you divide them.
Well, why can't? Well, then why doesn't Africa unite and become a powerhouse and build like rockets and missiles and shit like that.
I'm gonna say, I'll be honest and say this: the racist white supremacists that govern the planet are the smartest people in the known universe.
Yeah,
and I have
amazing.
no problem saying that, because for people who are less than 10% of the global population to die the way they do, you can't be fucking stupid. And to run it for this long, you can't be fucking
Could
stupid.
I ask you one question?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Take Africa, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's probably one of the most fertile lands on the globe. It's full of riches and just amazing soil. Not in all the places. I know, you got the Sahara and everything like that, and there's some pretty bad places down south too. But how come there isn't this uniting and making that place just a powerhouse of a continent?
Because, as I said, the racist white supremacists.
Now without blaming white people, take
I
the
cannot
black.
explain that.
Well, how could you blame black? How could you blame white people when all black people are there?
I'm going to explain to you.
Okay, go ahead.
You stop talking and let me explain that.
All right.
What you do, you send in your missionaries. You give them a false sense of God about themselves. And then you divide the people. You choose who you want to put on a pedestal, and you turn them against the other. It's sort of, as a matter of fact, exactly how a slave plantation worked back in the day. The world is in itself a giant slave plantation.
So how come?
Listen.
All right, I'm listening. Go ahead.
The way the slave master on a slave plantation had to figure out a way to survive amongst all those people. Him and his wife and maybe his family, a few of them, got maybe 20 to 30 slaves, but had to figure out a way to do it. And the best way he knew how to do it was to beat the shit out of them, one, divide them amongst themselves by separating families, taking the light skin, so-called light skin from the so-called dark skin, and putting the light skin on the fellows, causing this whole color confrontation shit. And then you pit the men against the women and the children against. It's a whole fucking system.
So if you see all this,
and that's what the world is. That's exactly how the world is.
But if you see all this, then why don't you just blow it off and go, okay, that's what they're doing. Hey, let's say fuck them.
Because
let's unite. Let's unite as a people. And we have a giant continent packed with resources. Let's become a powerhouse in the world.
First of all, the number one tool they used besides deception, the number one tool in the deception kit was religion. They gave they gave the majority of non-white people on the planet a false image of God. And that image of God is white.
Don't you think any image of God is false? Like African tribes worship what they worshipped. Every ancient people and modern people all worship what they worship, but it's all nonsense.
But it doesn't matter whether you believe a God or not. The point is these people believed in a God that reflected their own society.
Are you saying to me?
Why did they abandon that?
Jim's question. Can I answer Jim's question?
No, not for a second. Let me add something in to Jim's question. Are you saying that people in Africa were so gullible that they would listen to anything that a white person said? I thought this was a continent that was full of princes and kings and
Look, I didn't grow up in Africa. I didn't grow up back then. I didn't survive 500 years and watch where the shit come.
Oh, well, I didn't enslave anyone, so I guess we're even.
The point is this.
I guess it's a wash.
The world we live in today.
Yeah.
The world we live in today is under a global system of racism, white supremacy.
Wow, I don't see that at all. I'm sorry.
Answer this question, then.
I'm looking at a black president on TV as you say this, by the way.
So show me anywhere on the planet right now or any time in history where non-white people classified as non-white by the racist white supremacists can force white people to pick up and move and make them move with military might. To go anywhere in the world and make large groups of white people pick up and move. And
I have my theories, but if I say them, I'm fucked, okay? Do you understand? This is my white. Wait. This is the white supremacist land that you say we live in. I can't tell what my opinion is on why predominantly black nations cannot rise up and make white people leave and create a continent of industry and maybe become a world powerhouse. I can't tell you why. That's how fucked this world is, and how supreme we rule, that I will be fired if I give my honest opinion as to why I believe that is the case. Thanks. Thank you.
That is the phoniness of your own system.
It's not the phoniness of my own fucking system.
Yes, it is.
It's the fucking, it's the power you possess. It's the power you possess. It's the black supremacy over my fucking job. Bullshit. Bullshit, Coop. There's black supremacy. I can't speak my piece without losing my fucking job. I can't have my opinion. I can't speak my piece as to why I don't think that there is a black nation that is prosperous and run completely by blacks. I can't fucking express that because I'll be fired. Thank you.
Because that is the refinement of the system. See, 30 years ago, you could have said what you wanted to say.
Yeah. Yes, I probably could have.
The racist white supremacists.
And what's changed? What's changed? So no one can talk now. No one can talk now. But where's the major? No one can talk now. But what changed in the fact that where's a powerhouse black nation?
What has what?
I said things have changed. We can't talk about it now. We could 30 years ago, but since it's changed, why hasn't things changed then in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa?
I'm going to tell you, the system has refined itself. Meaning, and please let me explain.
All right.
Meaning, it is tacky to openly say nigger, so to speak. So what has the system done? The system has found out a way to be racist and to subjugate as non-white people.
That was 20 white meetings ago.
That is done. That was
should have been there.
And it is done under the disguise of racial showcasing. What is racial showcasing, you ask? Racial showcasing is simply, a perfect example would be President Obama.
Okay. See, no matter what a black man achieves or a black man doesn't achieve, it's always the white man's fault. Stop blaming white people. Hey, Coop and black people, stop blaming white people. Stop blaming racism. Get your shit together. Get your shit together and fucking do something.
By the way,
that's all I'm saying.
If white supremacists, Coop, if white supremacists,
God, I hate white people are fucking. White people are fucking everything up.
If white supremacists were going to put a president in that was black, they would not have put President Obama in. White supremacists would have put in a conservative guy. They would not have put in a liberal president.
Right. What his politics are.
Sure it does.
That's what you don't understand. That's what I mean when I say supremacy. Supremacy means I rule and I say what goes on.
You don't understand, though. Obama, Coop, Obama is...
White people, you don't just complain about... Oh, let me ask you something.
Obama, hold on. Obama is an elitist. He's an intellectual elitist. He's an intellectual elitist. He's a nerd.
That's another one of those code words that white people just give me. I don't mean white people.
Code words?
Code word? I accuse white people of being intellectually elitist all the time. Are you saying because he's black he can't be an intellectual elitist? He's a Harvard elitist guy.
He has an excuse for every black problem, and it's always white people. No, you have an excuse for every black issue, and it's always white racism.
He's an Ivy League thinking guy. That's my opinion of Obama. He's I can't do it.
I know.
Stop talking.
I know.
All right, Coop.
All right, Coop. You made your point again.
Stop talking.
Yeah, Coop.
Let's agree not to disagree. Let's disagree.
I'm going to the bathroom.
Okay, to go pee-pees.
There's one more thing on the hunting thing, though, Jimmy.
I got to piss.
Okay.
Jimmy's little bladder. It hurts. Oh, God.
Yeah, the hunting thing got people worked up, too.
That argument never works with him.
Which one?
Coop. Because he just, he does. It's always just fucking white people with the big conspiracy. And I sit around as, a pseudo-white person, because, I am Sicilian, part Sicilian anyway. But I sit around and have to listen to that shit when my hands and my tongue are tied, that I can't honestly speak. I can speak as honestly as a white person's allowed to speak on the radio. I think I get away with a lot because I'm not doing it under the guise of hate or anything. I'm giving my opinion in an open forum, and I thank God I can do that. But there are certain things and opinions and even facts that I cannot say. I will lose my fucking job. And you're telling me that that isn't power? Preventing me from exercising my First Amendment right isn't a power that's taken from black people and put on me as black racism against white people? You got white people petrified of talking. You motherfuckers. You have white people scared shitless to fucking give their opinions. That's power, motherfucker. Not me walking around saying, oh, this motherfucker or that guy or this, fucking done not tipping. Oh, shit, look, Savage putting a man in a pot in Africa. Those are jokes. Those are called fucking jokes. But you are legitimately keeping me from voicing what my opinions and other things are for fear of losing my job. That's more power than I'm fucking wielding.
Jumpy jump, jump, jump,
Yes.
jump.
Thank
Jumpy
you.
jump, jump, jump,
Thank you.
jump. What happened to our fun vibe?
Oh, watching kid shows.
Jumpy
All of a
jump,
sudden
jump,
I'm
jump,
arguing with
jump.
a fucking
Jumpy jump, jump,
gentleman.
jump, jump. Anyone? Jumpy jump,
Jump, jump, jump.
Jumpy jump, 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 jump.
I want to do the
See, we're
pumpkin
happy
dance.
again.
Double whammy.
Context of white supremacy. Your first time hearing it since last week. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. What do you think?
I was sitting here laughing to myself because every time I ask a question, he wouldn't answer the question. He'll just he suddenly turned himself into the victim. And I really was, I'm not going to say I was unprepared for it, but I was like, you know what, I'm going to stick to my point. That's all I wanted to do. I wasn't going to allow him to deviate me from why I originally called. And I originally called because I wanted to talk about the system of racism and white supremacy. But that's what like I said, this isn't the first time I've called. He immediately starts screaming and yelling, black people need to stop blaming white people, blah, blah, blah. But everything you just heard is always how our conversations always go. We end up talking over each other, we screaming and yelling, and then the other white guy you heard who's trying to play like the good cop role, he always does that as well. He'll sit there and he'll ask me questions, and I'll try to answer the questions, and then the loud one will immediately jump in and start attacking me again, and just to the point where, and I've come to suspect that's a strategy, so that now we're yelling at each other so they could be like, oh, well, nobody's talking, nobody could communicate, let's just end the conversation. So it always ends that way. I think it only ends amicably once between us.
Wow. I thought it was quite interesting. Black racism. That's 2 days in a row we got white people asserting that you have black racism. I think I said yesterday that is one of the worst forms of racism, white supremacy. Anytime you have a white person asserting that you have so-called black racism.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. You said you were concerned. You were hoping that you didn't say anything stupid.
Yeah.
What is your, I guess your codified assessment of what you shared, what you said to him?
I think I should have just listened to him more, but then I was thinking to myself that I should have just been quiet and listened to him more. But then I realized no matter what he says and whatever questions he asked me, whenever I tried to answer, he would immediately just cut me off and just start screaming and yelling about something. So honestly, I think I handled myself pretty well. I was, like I said, I was being heard by like 2 million people. So I was kind of nervous. My heart was really racing at the time, even when before I even got on the phone to call him. So I was kind of like stumbling and trying to find my words. But the fact that I know whenever he deviated from any question I asked him means that I felt, at least I think so, I was on the right path. So I learned that if you're asking questions and if they can't answer the question or maybe try to follow it up with a question, that means at least to me, I'm winning in that discussion, that debate. Because it's like yesterday, I listened to the show you had with the gentleman who had the prom video, the prom DVD, the documentary. I listened to that this morning, and you asked him simply, what makes a black person racist? What do black people do that is racist? And he couldn't just say yes or no. And that's what when I was listening to it, I said he does the same thing. When I asked him the question, where can you find any situation on the planet, pretty much anywhere, where white people are being forced to move by non-white people? And all he had to do was answer here or he doesn't see such a thing. But he doesn't do that. He just goes and asks some stupid question or just starts screaming and yelling as he did. And there's the same example, as I said, when you spoke to the documentary director yesterday. So I come to suspect that when white people start talking, racists, start talking like that, that means you got them against the ropes. They refuse to answer the question. And one thing white people don't want to, I learned that white people do not want to do is feel like they're being sort of pressed by non-white people. They don't want to ever feel, I've learned that they don't want to feel like this white person has an advantage, this non-white person has an advantage over me. He's putting me in a position. And that's when that anger comes out, and the screaming and the yelling and yada, 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 and carrying on.
Yeah, trifling. I thought it was quite interesting. Not quite as bad as suspected white supremacist Paul Saltzman, the director-producer for Prom Night in Mississippi. Mm-hmm. Not quite as bad as him saying that a black person being racist is a black person who cursed at him 50 years ago. But them saying black racism is the fact that they can't say something on the air because they will be fired. They know, I mean, they are very aware that it is not black people who will cause them to lose their job. It is white people. Whatever the firing, if it does happen, if they get any sort of consequences, it will be white people who make that decision, not black people.
For a long time, because they always made that argument. That ain't the first time he brought that argument up. He's made it all the time, just talking in general, that if I can't say this, then I'm going to lose my job because Al Sharpton or so and so and so and so and so. And I actually believed that. And like I said years ago when I was confused, I actually believed it. But then as I became more and more less confused and learned about what refinement is, that's what I said, that's exactly what it is. When I hear white people complaining about they can't say this, they can't do that, yada, yada, yada. Matter of fact, well, some years ago, what's his name? Michael Richards. He was Kramer on Seinfeld. He went on stage at a comedy show, and a couple of black gentlemen heckled him, and he lost his mind on stage and started screaming nigger at him and saying all types of racist things. Soon after that, this was like a big story for like a week or two, and everybody started having black people around the country started having like these ceremonial burials for the word nigger, so to speak. Like they said, we're no longer going to say the word nigger, and they have like these mock funeral ceremonies saying we're burying the word nigger. Of course, they made a whole joke about what was going on. And then I learned they're actually upset that they can't say the word nigger. If you listen to the clip, when I mentioned the word savage to him, what the other white guy said, don't take savages away from us. Please don't take savages away from us. And this is the same argument they was having years ago when they was saying with that word nigger, and it was like, oh no, don't take nigger away from us. It's just, and then they just kept crying, don't take that word away from us, don't take that word away. You already took faggot away from us, you took retard away from us, we can't say midget, we can't say all these different words, now you're going to take nigger away from us. And the excuse that the main antagonist, the main one in the audio, his excuse for the word nigger is because if he's arguing with a black person, he says, his logic is whenever you're arguing with somebody, you want to say the most hurtful thing to them. You don't mean to be racist, but when you're arguing with somebody, you just want to hurt them. So that's why I use the word nigger. And I just thought, like, they're really crying over the loss of this word. And that really, like, started opening my eyes to them and what was really going on. Like, so what? You can't say nigger. You own the world. Why are you complaining about nigger? Again, I didn't understand refinement and all the other stuff, but at the same time, I at least understood that white supremacy was a global system from just reading the ice papers. That was pretty much my only reference to the system of racism, white supremacy. And that always baffled me that they were so upset that they can't, and not only just the word nigger, but like I said, midget, retard, many other derogatory terms for people. And I thought about it, I said, white people just love making fun of each other. Not just each other, but of everybody. Like, people with genetic deficiencies, that's another thing on their show. They'll destroy somebody with this. They'll just go on a 20-minute tirade, just like they did with the African nonsense they was just speaking. They'll go on a 20-minute tirade about somebody with a brain tumor. They really would. They would just, and like I said, I've listened to the show for 10 years. This is what they do. And then, of course, their callers will call in and add their 2 cents, and at the same time, the callers will email their responses, and they'll speak the best ones over the air. And this will go on for like 20 minutes to a half hour, just talking about somebody with a brain tumor, all types of things, midgets, and I don't see the point in all of it. That's one of the reasons I called. Like I said, I'm not telling you what to say. I'm just trying to get into the point that why do I have to go there? That was my reason why I was calling. Like, why does he even have to go into that racist direction? And of course, they got upset, and you heard the rest of the audio.
That right there, I think that says it all. To be able to call a black person a nigger, that is the most hurtful thing I can possibly say to a black person, and to refine the system so that I can no longer say that. Oh my gosh, it's like you're taking away one of my pleasures. Like that's one of the things that my Viagra, I've said repeatedly, you're taking away a little bit of my Viagra for each day when I can't call you a nigger. And you heard that or I don't know if people heard it. I played the clip where they were singing a song, and they said they wanted to put in a word that rhymed, and it was nigger. That was what I wrote it in the chat. They wanted to say it right there. Trifling all the way. Also thought Dr. Welsing moment when they ended the dialogue with you. One of the suspected white supremacists said he was going to the restroom. I said genitals. You conflict, racism, white supremacy, focused. Dr. Welsing moment. Wow.
I wanted to say something. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, please.
Now I'm just thinking about everything I've heard on the show, and I kind of really say that white people are out of their effing minds. They really are, to the things they do to just white people just in a room together. You know what I'm saying? One of the things they loved about being on Satellite Radio, they said they have unlimited capacity to do whatever they wanted. And the fans of the show are twisted. You have white people who will come on the show just to say, I want to meet you guys, and I'll do anything to meet you. And you have people that will bring in dog feces and say, I'm going to brush my teeth with this, and get on the air and will do that. Will brush their teeth with dog feces or vomit on it. Like, there's no depravity that I've heard on the show that I couldn't believe it. And I'm not joking when I say that. The things they did on that show, when I'm listening to it, I'm just like horrified listening to this. I've never laughed at any of this. I'm just thinking like, what the hell is wrong with these people? And why is it that a white male is so excited that he wants to meet another white male that he's willing to eat dog feces? Or have another white male vomit in his mouth, or drink, or just it's just madness. It really was just madness. And a lot of that stuff I really stayed away from. Like, I turned the show off or whatever. But there was so much stuff like that. A lot of stuff involving the genitals. They had a contest where they had white males sticking their, matter of fact, Tracy Morgan was part of that show. They had white males sticking their genitals in jars full of wasp. And the last person to get stung wins, or whatever the case may be. This was a contest they had on the show. I can't remember what the prize was. But I remember that particular show because Tracy Morgan was on the show, and then Tracy Morgan suddenly just left. And that's, like I said, a lot of stuff around the genitals and the anus and feces. The things they did to their interns on the show was just unbelievable. And they got a lot of this stuff online. They filmed. I guess over the last few years, their bosses said you can't do any of this no more. But a lot of the stuff is online of them filming the horrific things they have done. And like I said, feces and urine. And one time they had a black male on the show received oral sex from a white female. And of course, the one white dude, the one racist on the show, he had a problem with so-called interracial dating, interracial coupling, or whatever you want to call it. And he kept making his comments and making his comments, making his comments, making his comments. And they sat there in the studio, this black male is getting oral sex from this white female till completion. And it's just, and this is entertainment. This is on the radio, this is entertainment. And my mouth is just agape, like, wow. I just want to hear you guys complain about taxes, because I hate taxes too. Complain about that. At least I can relate to that. But the rest of this mess, I couldn't deal with it. So as I said, I didn't miss anything.
Context of white supremacy. The folks out listening, if you all have questions that you would like to ask, if you're on TalkShoe, it's *8. If you're on the free HD line, it is *6. I definitely want to get in. I mean, 2 million listeners. I think it is fantastic to get in. System of white supremacy, emphasize world system, that white people dominate tiny minority of the population, and to use the term showcasing, racial showcasing, and give an explanation. I think that's fantastic to get that codification out. Hopefully there's some non-white people listening who will pick up on that and do some investigating. But I think that's great. And I think, they seemed upset that, man, wow.
And another thing about, I want to just mention another thing about their listeners. They call their fans or their listeners, well, like their fans, hardcore fans, people that do anything for them. They call them pests. They call them the pest. And one of the things they'll give them, they say, oh, we got an assignment for the pest, and they'll find a radio show for whatever reason they don't like, and they'll just have their listeners just bombard their show with just either racist material, anti-sexual material. Like they'll just send pictures of just horrific things going on, and yada yada yada. And I was thinking about me, like, when you asked me about the show, it made me think about them immediately because they got fans everywhere, you know. So I immediately started thinking about their fans, like, what if they attack this show tonight? If they're really paying attention to this show, because that's what they do. You know, they'll completely bombard the email, bombard the phone lines, do all types of things, just completely disrupt your show, and they have a history of this. This is something they enjoy doing. They'll take it, and then if they got it on the air, they'll somehow get the audio and put it on the show, and they'll just carry it. On. Like I said, I'm not assuming, but that kind of crossed my mind when this topic came up, because as I said, they'll just Google their fans will Google their names, and maybe their hit came up in regards to this program. You understand?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's what they like for their fans, their so-called fans, to do. It's just, I feel like a double agent.
Wow. The Pest. That is incredible. I don't want to.
And mind you, the name of their channel on XM Radio is called The Virus.
I saw that. Yeah. Their comedy tour, I think, was The Virus Tour.
The Virus Tour.
Yeah. I mean, that is, man, white people are trifling, trashy, terroristic. I mean, and tacky, of course. Man, oh man, these white people. I didn't want to gloss over the genitals in the jar of wasps, Dr. Welsing again, and the sadomasochism. I mean, white people are, At any rate, man, I mean, it's, I too, when I listened to this, I too felt like it's interesting. Like you were saying at the beginning, this seemed very different from typical radio programs, particularly what you might hear from other victims. I felt like they often were sharing code, like you said that. I felt like I heard them say frequently, talking about white people concealing constructive information. Like I heard one person, one of the hosts, he was saying that growing up his family they had some sort of religion, quote unquote. They had like the title so that they could get discounts and save money, not have to pay taxes and things. And someone else called in and they knew this information about how you can register a vehicle and avoid certain taxes or get lower tax rates. And it was like he was saying his dad had this information or other. And it really stood out that white people have an extensive network. The pest. White people have extensive networks where they share information and practice racism, white supremacy. It's really, it really stands out. When you start to study white people, you see white people have extensive networks where they share information, help one another, and practice white supremacy.
Yes. Yeah, that's one thing I learned this morning. I was very upset this morning. As I said, I've recently lost my job, and I'm on the phone with some white people, and the information they just gave me was just like, I felt helpless. And that really just bothered me this morning, and I appreciate all the comments that I posted on your Facebook, and I appreciate the comments of encouragement from many of the listeners and the so-called friends on Facebook. So that really, honestly, really made me feel a lot better and prepared me to do this program this evening. But this morning I was just a mess. I felt just, like I said, I'm feeling a lot better now.
Context of white supremacy. I saw a lot of the Facebook, and I'll do roll call because I saw a lot of the folks who commented, and I'll read one of the questions as well, who had lots of encouragement. Reckless 2.0 represented Reckless 2.0. D had comments. Mr. Henry, listener and investor in the UK, he's been on the program before, on the line repeatedly. To share his views, Mr. Henry out in the UK. I don't know if he wants to give the name. He's called in before, this person. He's called in repeatedly and shared his views. If he's listening now, he can call in and share. We also, I believe, have the operator of racismdaily.com. He also had support for our guest for this evening's program. And, I can relate. On the plantation, there are many days it is tough to deal with what white people are dishing out. It is a lot. It is a lot. But I think that's great that people were there to provide some encouragement. And I hope sharing about your experience with these racists on the Opie and Anthony program. I hope this is a constructive investment of your Wednesday evening.
Honestly, I am so glad I agreed to do this, because once I got tired of the program, I really wanted to talk about white people with other black people. But most black people, they get this vacant look in their eye when you start talking about racism, white supremacy. It's just, I just leave them alone. So I'm just like, I'm gonna leave you alone. I'm not gonna mess with it. But it's there in my gut. So it's like I don't have nobody to really sit down and really talk to about this, or at least understand where I'm coming from. Because many of them will say, yeah, I understand, I agree, but then they're just like, well, what are you going to do? So I said, I just can't bother with them. But I'm glad I've connected with a lot of the people through the Facebook and just listening to the program. Just listening to people call in on a daily, whenever you do your shows. I feel like I know these people personally. They're pretty much the same people who call, and I always listen to your shows a day after. This is actually one of the first few times I listened to it live. No, I'm part of it, though.
Wow. Maybe we'll have a counter-racist network. Maybe that's what codification looks like. Mr. Fuller has always said that there haven't been enough people doing codification to really get a sense. I'm going to ask him that next time I speak to him. Like, I don't know if you can really get an accurate gauge of how codification would work, because you don't really have enough non-white people who are informed. Maybe that's what happened. Mm-hmm. Maybe white people, when you get an understanding of racism, white supremacy, and what you're supposed to be doing on the chessboard, it becomes much easier to function with other people on your side of the chessboard who are, trying to do the like-minded thing. It becomes much easier to function. Maybe there will be a counter-racist network. That would be great.
I reached a point in my life where all I want to do is just surround myself with black people who are doing something constructive and replacing racism and white supremacy with justice. That's like the only thing I want to do. And I've, over the last few years, because you mentioned Mr. Fuller, maybe like the last 3 years, I've decided that I want to do stand-up comedy. And I'll be honest and say this, my inspiration for stand-up comedy is, in fact, George Carlin. George Carlin was one of the first few people I listened to that made me, like, think, you know, and I've been listening to him for years. And when Obama was elected president, the first thing I kept saying to myself is, what would George Carlin say? What would he say? He always tackled, he talked about everything in his own way. Yeah, and I always thought he talked about racism, white supremacy, but he never mentioned it. He never called it racism, white supremacy. You know, so I always kept asking myself, what would Carlin do? What would Carlin say? What would Carlin say? And I just said to myself, well, why don't I just say it? So I've gotten into trying to get into the field of stand-up comedy. And when I started listening to the Cows and listening to Mr. Fuller, what was amazing was Mr. Fuller was saying everything pretty much as far as logic goes and questioning things like words and like was what George Carlin was saying. And I asked myself, did George Carlin actually listen to Mr. Fuller? Because it paralleled almost perfectly, at least to me, the logic between the both of them. So I actually called Mr. Fuller, and I told him, I said, I want to do stand-up comedy, and I want my comedy to address racism, white supremacy. And he explained that in general, the topic of racism, white supremacy, especially in a comedic setting that way, is too serious for people. So just try to focus on justice, and, you know, and that's pretty much where I'm going with it. So now that I pretty much am out of work, I'm putting more energy now. So I'm going to put more focus and energy into my writing and going out there and doing my stand-up comedy. And that's where I want to go with my life. The idea of going out, I know I have to work, but just the thought really of going out there and just begging pretty much white people for an application and are you hiring, it just does something to me. Like I can't do it. But at the same time, I know I got to do it. So I just wanted to get that out.
Context of white supremacy. I don't know how long I guess if you've been listening for a few months, if you go back in the archives far enough, Oreo writer, one of my favorites, Oreo writer, she also does comedy and talks about racism. She used to be married to a suspected white supremacist. She's been on the program twice. She actually did a song, White People to the Rescue. I mean, it's a whole comedic song about racism. And we had W. Kamau Bell. He was on the program. He is unfortunately in a tragic arrangement, and he does comedy about racism, but they are not very codified. So you might.
I want to take mine. I'm studying hard to completely codify myself. I said I'm taking it there because I'm really like at my almost. I feel like I'm at my limit, and just listening to like the show, the Opie and Anthony show, this hypocritical contempt that white people have for non-white people, especially for black people, that like white people could walk around and pat themselves on the back for things they achieved through just murder, for lack of a better word, and then pat themselves on the back and look at the rest of us and be like, "What, we did it? Why can't you do it?" That's what really pisses me off. That's what really gets me upset. Like this fake, phony contempt for us, this hypocritical contempt. And I actually said that to a white person one time, and he got so pissed off he threatened me. This is from like a few weeks, about almost a month ago. But that's the thing that really drives me crazy with white people, is that phoniness. And then they try to blame us because, like you heard him, he said, "Oh, I can't say what I want to say because of the power you have." All right, I'm done.
If it's all good, we have at least one person who called in with a question and someone who typed a question. who typed in a question. The person who dialed in on TalkShoe with a hand up. Walking Bear, did you have a question for our listener? Excuse me, our guest. Sorry about that.
Yeah, greetings to the guest tonight and to you, Gus. I'm David, the one who responded to your email today on Gus's page. And what you're saying, man, like I said, I think everybody who the veil was lifted. Everybody's in the same boat. And all I can say is that what you're talking about, the guy reversing the whole victimization. I've heard guys say the phrase, a group of people masquerading as victims. And that's probably the best way how they like to twist stuff around. All of a sudden, they don't have the power, and you're the one who's, mistreating them when that's not true. So it's
that's
like
one
I said,
thing.
it's hard. It's tough. And what helped me is what you were describing. I mean, I know one guy in this area that we can talk, and I've known him since '95, but he can't handle it, all the time. Yeah, it's almost like, and I'm sure it is post-traumatic stress, but, some days he's not available. He just can't deal with it. And what helped me, because I think I called into Drop Squad one night. I found it by accident, and I was, like I said, I'm just tired. I'm sick and tired, and like I said, I was in the military, so my attitude's a little bit different. But either way, I'm sick and tired, and it's nice to know that someone else out there that has the same, is seeing the same thing. And the sad part is it's so far and few between. You're linking with people across the country or across the planet. And Gus was talking about his one of his supporters in England, and we chat, back and forth on email and on Skype. And again, I said it's amazing. I said, well, I saw all his friends, the guy in England, and I asked him. I said, well, how many of your friends are at your level? He said maybe 2, and I think he has maybe 300 or 400 people. And he said 2 people think or are aware of the system. The rest are lost, like everybody and everybody I know. So it's hard, man. And you can't go back. That's the problem. It's almost like like the movie The Matrix. You can't get plugged back in and forget everything you learned or that you know.
I think Gus described. I believe it was Gus who described it as trying not to read when you know how to read.
Exactly.
That's exactly how I see it. It's like I know it's there, and I can't just. And I'm very stubborn, and I've never accepted anything that I felt was incorrect. I got in trouble a lot growing up because I refused to accept something that I know was completely incorrect. And this is one of the worst. Yeah, this is like the worst incorrection in history. And it's like you just gotta go through it. Like it's like just walking around surrounded by feces all day and you act like you don't smell it. It's just it's weird, man. It really is just a weird thing for me. But thank you. I appreciate your call. Thank you for the support, brother.
Walking Bear, if you can hang tight 1 second, I'm going to get your line back open. It was just 2 other people have a hand up, so I want to make sure I get their questions as well. The person who called in from California, did you have a question for our guest?
Greetings. Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I hear you.
What's your name again? I forgot it.
You can just call me Cooper.
Cooper.
Yes.
Yeah, I was listening to your call in, and the part where you said the missionaries, they send in the missionaries when they were asking about Africa and whatnot, and that was I liked that part. Was pretty cool, I thought. And they tried to deflect, by saying, well, isn't God in itself a stupid concept or whatever? And he just said, well, whether you believe in God or not, it doesn't matter if they had a God for their civilization. I thought that was a good way to bring it back to the point. And how would you describe like I thought that was interesting what you said, that they had a God that reflected their civilization. So as far as the white God, do you think that their God or lack thereof reflects their civilization? And that's all.
I'm sorry, repeat the question.
My question is, do you think that the white God, or their lack of a God or whatever, reflects the civilization, that so-called civilization, racist white supremacist construct that they have? Have you ever thought about that? If not, that's cool.
Well, I've thought a lot about this, and I've concluded that what white people call God is just the worship of themselves. That's how I see it. They don't believe in they don't believe in a higher power. The only thing they believe is themselves. And the reason I say that is because you can't do all manner of things and say your God is benevolent and treats and loves and all this, and then you go out and you destroy people, and at the same time force them to believe in your God. And another reason I say again that the white God is nothing more than a white man is when I notice that whenever black people get good news, a white person will call them like, "Hey, so-and-so, Mrs. Johnson, you got the loan for the house, and congratulations, you can move in, blah, blah, blah." And the first thing they scream is, "Thank God." Or the white guy will call them and say, white person will call them and say, "Hey, congratulations, you got the great interview, you got the job, start Monday." Thank God. Every time there's good news or even bad news, dear God, oh my God, dear God. And I concluded that's just our way of just saying, why, white man, why? Or thank you, white man, thank you, white man. So that's my only way. I don't get into the whole, I believe there is a creator, and that's it. I mean, the creator has put us all here for a reason, and that's simply, and just follow, like Mr. Fuller said, just follow the logic. Like, you shouldn't hurt anybody because you pinch yourself, it hurts. So why would you want to put that pain on another person? That's my logic when I think about how people are taught to react. When I was a child, I always asked myself, why do bees have stingers? Why do bees have stingers? I mean, I asked a white person. He said, well, you could say the devil probably put bees there because of the stingers. But I was never satisfied with that answer, and it always stuck with me for years and years and years. And then I just concluded that bees have stingers because bees have every right to be on this planet as we do. The bee is going to sting you to protect itself. Leave the bees alone. And that pain is going to remind you to leave the bees alone. And at the same time, the pain you may inflict on yourself hurts. Why would you want to do that to somebody else? And as I said, white people don't understand that. I mean, they enjoy pain. Just look at their sex and all that other stuff. Like I said, their God is them. They see themselves as God and nobody else above them. There's nothing above them. I don't think they believe in God up in the sky or heaven or any of that mess. They just believe in what they are.
The person who called in, Ankh Amen, your line is open. Did you have a question?
I think this is good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
And ladies. I think 909 again beat me, took away my question. But I dig, I got to give you a compliment. You stuck in there, brother. You did a pretty good job with trying to explain to some guys who I believe were very knowledgeable of what's going on and were just playing their role, like you said, playing a script, good cop, bad cop. Yeah,
yes.
That was definitely what they was doing to me, as well, because, I would call in, not to their show, but the other shows, sports shows, when I was less codified. But I would have said, like you said, the missionaries, I would have also said, especially when they talk about Africa and how come Africa don't just band together. What you should have said was because they kill them, they assassinate the leaders, like Sadat. They assassinate leaders with morals and high standards. What did they do to the brother over here in Haiti? They didn't assassinate him, but they removed him from office. Because why? He has high standards, high morals. If he's going to raise the livable work wage, then the next coming thing is schools, roads, and any other thing for the people. So you got to keep confusion going. You got to destroy. You got to keep destruction in the path so that you can be God, like you said. They see themselves as God. Or should I say, what I think is they have a person that represents them as God, and I think they use the Pope as their representative. The Pope and the Queen of England.
Mm-hmm.
The Pope is the father, and the Queen is the mother.
Yes.
And I think these people, they have these affinity. That is their trinity. They're the child of these devilish people.
What I found interesting. I'm sorry to cut you.
No.
But I found interesting one time, and they've said this a few times. They've always going, "Oh, I don't believe in God. I don't believe in Jesus." This whole, they don't believe in any of the religions. But they would always go to Sunday, like a Easter Sunday Mass, a Christmas Sunday Mass, all these certain, like, I guess so-called holiday masses. They will always go there. And I always thought that was very interesting. And then I understood as white supremacy being a religion, and then it made more sense to me. It made a lot more sense to me. And another time we got into a religious discussion, and every time I asked them numerous times, I asked them, why do so many non-white people, why didn't you use the term non-white people? I just said, why do so many black people worship white Jesus? And of course, they always deflect. They've always deflected from that question. In fact, you get upset whenever that question is raised. Because one time that the black male who I mentioned before, who guest on his show every once in a while, he asked a priest who called their show, why did they turn Jesus into a white man? And again, that same particular racist on the show said, who cares? Who cares? It's all hocus pocus, blah, 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 blah. But then he'll say he'll go to Christmas Mass. So there's that confusion there. So as I said, their religion, whatever they believe, they don't believe in nothing more than themselves. White people don't believe in nothing higher than themselves. So for them, I feel like for them to believe in a God, so to speak, would be a contradiction to what white supremacy is.
I want to make sure I get Pam in. She has a question. If any of the other folks who dialed in at TalkShoe, if you have a question, it's *8. If you're on the free HD line, it's *6. Just before I get Pam's question, the previous caller, Ankh Amin, he mentioned assassinations in Africa. I wanted to definitely make sure I got that connection. I played a sound clip earlier from Opie and Anthony where they were talking about one of the suspected white supremacists. He said he was talking about African countries, mud countries, and so forth, and he said, I bought the Congo. I'm paying for the Congo. That area of the world, there was a victim of white supremacy who was attempting to make the continent of Africa a so-called superpower and to unite all of the black people in that area of the world, and white people killed him. Patrice Lumumba, the Congo, just to get that connection. But there were several who that was their exact expressed mission, and white people went about the business of eradicating them immediately with maximum resistance. So Patrice Lumumba. Pam, your line should be open. Did you have a question?
Yes, I did. Good evening, Cooper, and good evening, Gus.
Good evening.
I wanted to say that I listened to the way you handled the call, and I thought, given, like you said, that people were listening, it's kind of like you had to wing it. I thought you did a really great job. Also, I agree with you that I believe the religion of white people, the real religion of white people, is white supremacy, and nothing takes a backseat to that. The question I had for you was, what part of the country do you live in?
I live in New York.
Okay.
I'm in New York.
Okay. Second question I had was, given how you became more conscious and aware of white supremacy, what suggestion would you make to encourage other people? You know, because I'm making the effort. You know, me and some co-authors, we wrote a couple of books, and we're trying to figure out ways to bring that message to people. And since you've had that experience, I guess, recently, do you have any suggestions on how to bring other white people into the fold?
Well, for me personally, it's been comedy. I watch a lot of white comedy, and there's a lot of racist code in comedy. In fact, that's one of the things they always shout about, the fact that there isn't enough racism in comedy. So pay attention to a lot of, there is a comedy, and a lot of white people love this comedy. Focus on that. And at the same time, movies in general, like from my experience, listening to the show for so many years, I've come to learn they love movies, especially very racist movies. Pulp Fiction is one of the things they love to talk about on that show. So pay attention to that. Like anything white people spend a lot of money on, that's the thing. That it means there's a lot of racism going on. Video games is another thing. I love video games, and there's like 1 million video games involving killing zombies, and they sell by the millions. So you have to pay attention to these little cults. What's the word I'm looking for? I guess activities that they like. These little things, entertainment. That's pretty much what I'm interested in. That's pretty much my whole focus. I mean, I'm trying to stay focused on everything, but for some reason, entertainment is more like I'm seeing the system through entertainment, you know, and that's been my focus. Video games, movies, music, you know, and just those things in general, just entertainment. The white people really love something. If they love something, I learned that means it's extremely racist. You know, when, like, perfect example, when the movie Precious came out, white people were screaming how great this film is. In fact, the racist on his show, he says he loves the movie. It's one of his favorite comedies of all time. He loves the film. So stuff like that, you really got to pay attention to.
Is that Pulp Fiction?
Yeah, Pulp Fiction. Like for me, it's been entertainment. It has really been entertainment. And when I used to listen to the show, and I hear them talking about a book or whatever, I'm like, okay, why they like this book so much? I'll go research it, you know. And now that I'm more codified, so to speak, okay, now I know why you like it. It's because some black guy just got his head blown off for some reason, for no reason whatsoever. In fact, there's a new video game out right now. It takes place in the 1940s. You play a 1940s detective, and the very first case you get in the video game, in the tutorial of the game, involves the murder of a black male by a suspected racist. And then when you find the suspected racist, you are told to just leave it alone and just walk away. And that's how you start the game. So stuff like really, video games are becoming, like, I love video games, and video games are becoming more and more and more prevalent in the system of racism and white supremacy. Especially now, they're spending $200 million to make these games now. So focus on that too. You have children, anybody listening with children who like to play video, really look at that. So that's entertainment.
Yeah.
Excuse?
Yeah, okay. Well, you just gave me an idea, actually, so thank you.
You're welcome, Pam. Nice to finally talk to you. I've listened to you so many times. I would like to talk to Pam one time.
Well, I'm glad you came on. You know, it's really encouraging to see more and more people listening to cows, and more people starting to. And I agree with you totally about the entertainment thing. I think it's the perfect medium for the message that they have. I'm at the point now where I feel like anything black or black person or black film, black book that white people like, I know it must be promoting white supremacy. That's just my litmus test now. If a white establishment, so-called establishment, likes something that's associated with black people, I know it's about white supremacy.
Mm-hmm. I started to learn that too with the Oscars. When I looked at all the black Oscar winners, I like up until recently, after like Monique last year won it, I believe it was last year she won it for playing a bad black mother, and they gave it to the white woman for playing a good black mother. I started paying real close attention to how these black people, what Oscars these black people have got it for, and it's done, and it made sense to me now. Like I've never once seen a black person win an Oscar for being a dignified person, just a human being, a person who, you know, there's no strife or animosity with this person. It's just a human being. But like I said, all the black people that won Oscars, they've been degraded. You know?
Can I just throw one thing out there? I would say if you look at a lot of these movies, a lot of these TV shows, the one thing that stands out over and over again is the isolation of the black male from the black female. The black female is literally being ripped away from the black man's life. She is shown to be this defective monster mother or this defective, undesirable person. And what they're doing is they're constantly, now they're working on black boys, making it seem as though the white female is the best mother, role model for the black boy. The white female is the best friend of the black male. The white female is the best lover / wife / breeder for the white female. And what they're doing is they're isolating the black male, just like in the game of chess. Once you get that king, that vulnerable king, once you get him so he has no protection, it's checkmate. So I would highly advise, a lot of this stuff seems flattering to black men, that they're getting this attention, that black women are getting kicked to the curb, but that's the way you do in the jungle. And we're dealing with animals. And what you do is you take the animal that you isolate and you kill it. So if you look at it, the commercials, the TV shows, the movies, they're constantly isolating black males, whether they're children or adults, from black females. That's a very dangerous situation, and black men need to be very much aware of that. And I'll listen now and let someone else ask.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. I just watched a commercial. In the commercial, there's two couples, a black female with a white male, and then the other couple is a white male and a white female in the commercial. And I just looked at it and said, really? At this point, they're just getting just blatant with it.
Right.
Just completely blatant.
They don't do it much with black women, but they're doing it more and more, pushing black women toward white men. So I would also advise black women, I'm glad you said that, advise black women be very much aware of the divide and conquer strategy, because it's not designed to help you or uplift you, it's designed to destroy you. So we need to understand that the thing they fear the most is black unity. That's what they fear the most.
One other thing I noticed with the commercials and stuff, I call them the Sunny D commercials, because in these Sunny Delight commercials, I remember watching them as a kid, they usually have all these, for lack of a better word, racially diverse children running into this house to drink a glass of Sunny D after playing outside. And I noticed the commercial is always like that now, but the black person is always in the back, and the white people in the front taking charge of whatever the situation is, and the black person is just there. Black females, I've noticed it with a lot, especially with black females. Black females are just there, and you have these white females just taking charge of whatever the situation may be. It's crazy.
The person who called in, hang tight, everybody. The person who called in with a hand up from East Maryland. Did you have a question or comment?
Yes, sir. Hey, Gus.
I'm sorry?
Reckless.
Oh, okay. You're a little low. Can you speak up, please?
Yeah, sure. I had a couple of things. One, I'd like to say greetings to the guest. I think you did a pretty good job in talking to these suspected racist white supremacists. And I just had a couple of suggestions around, I guess, what they said. One is where they said, well, why doesn't Africa rise, blah, blah, blah. Two things for that. One, I would have pointed out that there's no evidence that black people have ever functioned as a race of people, in contrast to white people. And I think that would have been an interesting point to bring up. And two, I believe that he said that he asked why black people couldn't rise in Africa, but after he was done with his rant, he said, oh, well, I'm not allowed to say my views on black people even though, he makes millions of dollars a year and I'll get fired. But, so I just thought that was pretty blatant. And I just had, I guess, a question. I also felt that it was pretty important that he pointed out that they were the global minority. And he said, how could there be white supremacy if we're the global minority? And, it's just kind of stupid. I mean, like, white people control everything, and you're the global minority. That would probably mean you're supreme on this planet. And the question I had for you is, how does it feel for you to challenge, to openly challenge white people, especially on such a big forum? I'm a firm believer that you need to challenge white people as often as possible. And how did you feel after re-listening to what you had to say to racists?
You asked me how does it feel to challenge white people on such a large platform as that? So you were breaking up.
Yes, sir.
It felt nice. I'll be honest with you. I've always been a person who loved a good debate. For a long time I used to always argue with I guess you could say debate or argue with black people. And I loved it. It always got my juices. It always gave me energy, and I always felt good about myself, and it always built up my confidence. But then I learned through codification that debating and arguing with black people about racism and white supremacy is completely futile. So I said, okay, fine, I'm going to challenge white people. And it took a while to build up that kind of a courage to talk to them, because I admit, like most black people, I was intimidated by white people. Once white people raise their voice, it's like, okay, damn, But I learned to look past that and just like, okay, whatever, you're gonna raise your voice, I'm gonna continue to do it. I'm gonna say what I gotta say, So, and I like it. I'll be honest with you, I like it. I really do. I love debating white people, And when they get upset like that, I just sit back and I look and I would look and just laugh at them. And that pisses them off even more, and that makes me smile even harder, I've learned to defend myself a long time ago, so, hey, whatever you're going to do it. I like it. I'm not a physical fighter. I don't like to physically fight. At the same time, I can defend myself. But I know I'm a fighter, but I'm not a get in the ring and roll in the dirt kind of fighter. I could verbally spar with you if I need to. And I'm learning more and more to do that with white people. I've done it for a long time with black people, but now I realize who I'm really supposed to be sparring with. And I'm getting more and more into that. That's one of the hardest things about comedy, because white people don't like to hear it. They'll get up and leave. They'll just be like, I ain't going to hear it. And again, that makes me smile. That means I'm saying something correct. If I was just up there being the regular coon comedian, and I really don't mean to be derogatory when I say that, but I'm black comedy in general, at least in my opinion, is very stale. It's very stagnant, and white people love it. And I said, well, if white people are digging this, that means something is wrong. That means you are on stage and you're not doing something right. And I learned that from Paul Mooney. Paul Mooney can make white people leave. I said, okay, that means you're doing something right. And I said, Paul Mooney could do it and do it for that long and be successful doing it. I know I could do it. And that's what I want to do. And that's what I'm going to do. As simple as that. So as you said, how it feels, like I said, it helps my confidence. It really does. So the system does destroy your confidence. I'm listening.
Black people, I think if black people did that in large of enough numbers, you can just see on a micro level the savage, pathetic behavior of white people. When black people were just calm and ask white people questions, and just challenge them on the way they see the world and the way we see the world. And like I said, they become pathetic. I mean, almost. So I do think that codification is a huge part in breaking the system, and I do really appreciate you calling up a show in national syndication and challenging these people. We need more of that from a lot more non-white people, black people worldwide. thanks
I
for
agree
coming on the
100%.
show, program. And Gus, one thing, it seemed that TalkShoe would not allow me to put my hand up. I had to recall in twice to get my hand raised. So very interesting.
To be expected. Mass resistance. And Reckless 2.0, again, D was one of the folks who commented on the Facebook page to lend some support as well. I wanted to recognize that. I think that's extremely important. Very constructive.
Appreciate it, Reckless. Thank you.
No problem.
Negrito's Way. Did you have a question, Negrito's Way?
Oh, yeah, good evening, Gus, and your guest. I just had a question. Like, before, when you were confused, did you have any black friends at the time, or what was your relation with?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Can you repeat the question?
When you were confused before this point, did you have like any black friends or girlfriends or anything like that at the time, or what was your view?
Oh no, actually, as far as I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, like when you used to listen to this show, did you have like a black girlfriend or a black friend at all, or?
I was married. You know, my wife didn't with me. She's not a fan at all. She wants no part of it. She don't waste her time even entertaining it whatsoever. It's just complete. Just stay away from me with that. She doesn't bother with it at all. No, it was just me and my headphones.
No, I would say it was pretty good what you just did. I mean, how long were you listening to How long were you listening till you got to the point where you were able to call them in and challenge them? Like,
well, this wasn't the first time I've called the show and challenged them. I've called more than, I would say at least before this, maybe 4 to 5 times. The first 2 times I actually called, I was kind of like on their side because, again, my confusion. So they may mention a black guy maybe complaining about racism, and then I'll call and be like, I was the typical, it ain't all, you know, I would support them in their racism, you know. But then as time went by, I started to like realize like something's not right here. And then I think about the time Barack Obama became president, and again I went back to the ISIS papers because Dr. Weldon moment. When Barack Obama was running for president, the one racist, the main one in the clip, he loves guns. He's a huge gun advocate. There's been days on the show he'll talk about his newest gun for 45 minutes. In fact, boom, double whammy. When his girlfriend broke up with him, he said the first thing he did the very next day was went out and bought a brand new 45. But anyway, as I was saying, when Barack Obama was running for president, he said the gun sales, when he went to the gun store, he's never seen so many people buying guns and ammunition. And his excuse was, Obama's going to get rid of the Second Amendment, so I need to get my guns and blah, 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 and all this noise about Obama destroying the Second Amendment, so I need to get my guns. But I immediately attribute that to Dr. Welton. So once I saw that, I started to really open up my mind more and more and more to what I was really listening to. You know, so then, and I always hear him very antagonistic, very upset with Obama. And I've called a few times. One time he was screaming about black people need to shut up because you made all this progress. And as I said, I called the show and said, what progress have black people made that white people didn't give us, so to speak? And that led into a whole thing. And then I called it tokenism. I didn't learn nothing about codification. I didn't know the word, the term racial showcasing. I said Obama is a token, you know. And of course they did the good cop, bad cop thing, and then it always just ends in just screaming and yelling and somebody hanging up.
You did very good. I just wanted to congratulate you on that, and thank you for being to hear your story.
Thank you. Have a good night.
I think. Oh, I did not. I thought we had hit everybody that had a hand. The person that called in from California. You had a question?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Hey, I just called in to agree with you in terms of the white people and how they see God. I did the same thing that you said. I kind of replaced God with white people. So every time now, you know, every time I read a story or something like that, when I see the word God or Lord or Jesus or anything like that, if you want to see some logic, replace those words with white people, and you'll know why you don't have what you don't have. You know?
Yes. I understand completely.
Think, you know, would it be logical for white people to allow you to have this job? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, just in terms of codification, when I read a story or I hear people talk and they say, "Thank you, Jesus," or "Thank you, God," I just say, "Thank you, white people," or you know, if you sneeze, you know, white people will bless you like that.
Yeah.
You know, and I say, so I just wanted to throw that in there, and it's good to hear somebody else say that. Because I've been doing it. No, I've just been doing it. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I've been, honestly, this is the first time I actually said this to somebody, but it's been in my mind for so long, you know? And I learned that by looking at my wife. Unfortunately, I'm really trying to get my wife into codification. And she like, when I talk to her, she like understands what I'm saying, but she doesn't have the drive that I do to challenge the system, to codify herself, you know, within the system. But as I said, I learned that she is, for lack of a better word, a Christian, I guess, whatever you want to call it. And every time she gets good news, whenever, and it's always, I'll be like, well, she'll come, thank God, she's always happy, thank God. So who just called? So-and-so from work, or so-and-so from this company, or this company. There's always some white person, and she's always coming out saying, thank you, God, see how good my God is. And I just looked at her like, damn, you lucky I love you. That's the only thing I could say. And I learned that. And like I said, this is the first time I ever actually said that to somebody. So I always kept that to myself.
Well, it's out there now. At least 2 people is thinking it.
Yeah.
So there you go. There you go.
All right, brother.
That's all.
All right, have a good night.
Dr. Trav Lyrics, 41510.com. 41510.com. Dr. Trav Lyrics, investor, longtime listener. I was going to hit the phone lines. I think we did now get all of the folks who called in. So I was going to get the phone lines for everybody who called in with a hand up. If we can keep the background volume down. If you are listening and you decide you have a question or comment, you can press *8 and I'll get your line. Negrito's Way, your line is open. Walking Bear, 909 D at Reckless 2.0, your line is open as well. If you are interested in chatting, as I said, press *8 and I'll get your line. Line is open. I'm going to mute my line, but before I go, I will say I think I'm going to listen to this Opie and Anthony program some more, because if they're going to be talking about Planet of the Apes, I will definitely be tuning in to hear that. I mean, I'm excited about that movie too. I will mute my line. Yeah, real interesting program. I don't know if they have downloads, but it is online. You can listen for free. Just go to XM and, you know.
Yeah, you know what I did for so long after I decided, I said, I can't pay for this no more? All I did was just make them an email every week. You get a 7-day trial. So I just I got like 100 million emails just floating out there that I just use and just access the show. So that's a tip if you want to listen to the shows I haven't actually supported. Just make up an email address.
That's a good
Hello?
idea. We could use all the presidents. This is David. We could use every president, their first name. But everything you were talking about, man, I think if most people are honest, they can say that they have experienced what you've experienced, especially with the dealing with friends and family who aren't there. And you know, you just, like, for me, I do the same thing. It's like I have to remember, you know, I got that one buddy that lives locally, and, you know, his wife's a Christian, and his wife has, you know, she's aware of the information. You know, this man has his own basic library in his house, but, you know, his son, who's, I think, 26, and his wife, you know, neither one, it's a non-issue to them, you know, but again, they're plugged in every day. You know, you have TV, you have, you know, the media, you have everything. You have this system constantly bombarding you 24/7, and somehow a handful of us come out of it, you know.
Yeah. Well, for a long time, I've always knew something wasn't right. Even when I was a teenager, because one thing growing up, what I think when it started happening when I was maybe 13 years old, where I grew up in Long Island. We used to every year we had to celebrate our local little community. We have what we call Amityville Day. I grew up in Amityville, Long Island. We have Amityville Day every year, but almost like clockwork, at the end of every Amityville Day, there was always bloodshed. There was always bloodshed at the end of every Amityville Day, and it always annoyed me. My brother was shot, so it always annoyed me for so long, but I couldn't put my finger on it. And I knew for some reason something wasn't right about white people until a friend of mine gave me a copy of the ISIS papers. And that kind of opened my eyes. I started looking at the behavior of white people, and I think I wasn't really completely, had a complete understanding of the system. I was more focused on the psychology of white people. Why do white people do what they do? Why do they say what they say? You know, that was my whole focus. And as I said recently with the election of Obama and how white people reacted to it, that really made me really want to get more codified in touch with what's really happening in the world around me.
And for what you just described, I think Obama was, or the reaction of people I've known for decades, white people, and, you know, some were liberal and others were, you know, they were Republicans, and they could probably quote Rush Limbaugh and others verbatim like a parakeet. But it was, again, just seeing that you could see that they were having troubles, that this man might possibly become president, you know, and that's what I saw, and that's when I realized, you know. And then also in my area, which is a military town, the ammunition during the campaign, before he became president, ammunition in the Walmarts the shelves were empty, like it was going out of business sale, and it hasn't changed. And this is, 3 years plus going into it? Because I just took a photograph of my son's birthday, and June 2nd, and the shelves looked the way they looked. I took a photograph in November of 2008, and I first noticed it September of 2008. And the ammunition shelves have been empty in my area, and we have 3 Walmarts in my city. So,
Yeah, and when, as I said, listening to the program, and the main white guy you hear, the main racist you hear on the program, his anger towards Obama, I was just like, dude ain't even president yet. And he's just screaming like this guy Obama is the worst thing ever. And I was like, but I wasn't surprised because immediately I went to the ISIS papers. The ISIS papers was like always in the back of my mind, even as confused as I was, but it always was like, okay, like I said, when I seen this white male so angry at the idea of Barack Obama becoming president, the ISIS paper made it make sense. And then with the whole, like I said, you just mentioned the guns and ammunition, things started to click. It really started. That's when I said, you know what, I need to really pay attention to what's going on. But I was just floating. I was just floating through life, just like, oh well, I got a good job. I'm just gonna chill and just do me. But I really couldn't just sit back and really do me, as the kids say, you know. Especially knowing what's going on.
With all that guns
I
and
think that's
ammunition, with all that ammunition they were buying, who were they planning to shoot?
no, you know, I don't know.
Perhaps
He used
the
to
ones
comment.
who voted the wrong way in their eyes. I'm not sure. Because I go to the gun range, and I will say this: most people, because ammo is almost doubled in price, most people are not shooting as much as they used to. So basically, everybody's been real conservative about how much ammo they use, and I guess now they're making sure every shot counts. So the people are stockpiling, and what will trigger them to, other than going to the gun range, I don't know, but I'm aware of my neighbors. I know what's going on in the community.
Yeah, I think it's like very, like I look at white people like I don't understand. They have this like a fear that black people are really, especially when during the presidential election, like black people are going to just really get together and turn against them. And I'm looking like, are you people serious? We fight over who's going to sit around the corner to get a bag of chips. And you think we're going to put the time and energy into coming together and going against you? And they sit there and you look, and you go to a lot of these white supremacist sites and you read the stuff. They're like, oh, get your guns and go there, because the Negroes are getting their weapons together, and we need to prepare ourselves. And I'm just saying, like, and another thing they'll comment on, one of the things they like to do, they'll play internet videos of like a lot of these so-called gangbangers, these black guys who are in gangs and stuff. You know how they like to show off. They'd be in the camera with their guns and their weapons and everything and their money and this and that and third. And then the racists on the show would be like, that's why I got my guns. I'm preparing myself. And I'm looking at it and I said, dude, you really think they're talking about shooting and killing you? They're talking about shooting and killing the next dude on the other corner. Some people gonna get on the videos and say, yeah, this is for white people, and they're like, this is for the nigger around the corner. But they have this irrational fear that we're gonna come and go after them, and that's not gonna happen. And that's what's so scary. That
white people know this.
I know, I was about to say that, and that's what's so scary.
In that direction.
And I think that's the most scary thing.
In that direction, so.
Yeah, man. And that's what I think is the most scary part, is that they're willing to feel that way, which means there's going to be something that's just going to trigger something, they're just going to lash out at us if we don't prepare ourselves. They're walking around with this irrational fear. It's only not logical they're going to have a irrational reaction.
Well, think about it. Saddam Hussein, he had nothing to do with September 11th. No one that was on an airplane was from Iraq. But, they created this thing, Bush administration over and over again. September 11th, Iraq. September 11th, Saddam Hussein. The next thing you know, we're focusing on that country. And to the point that we killed his two sons as well as hung him. And again, most of the country was rah, rah, rah. Yes, they're bad guys. And they did surveys, and I think they said at one point it was like 70% of the American population thought that Saddam had something to do with September 11th. And again, they kept revising. Was the weapons of mass destruction? Well, he's a bad guy. He's a dictator. They kept changing the reason why we were there. And, so you're right.
They just wanted to kill somebody. They just wanted to go in and kill They just wanted to go in and kill a whole bunch of brown people, and just came with a bunch of excuses to do it. That's all it was. I don't sit there and try to listen to their reasons after why. I said, you just want to go in and kill brown people. That's all you want to do. And
if you think about it, every war since the end of World War II, and I guess you can even add Japan to it, it's been a race war. Again, they didn't drop nuclear bombs on Germany. They dropped it on a non-white country. 2 nuclear bombs. But every war America's fought in has been a race war. It's been a race war. I mean, we have not, the threat of a Cold War with the Russians, all it did was let both sides, the East and the West, both European countries or nations or European people, stockpile ammunition and weaponry. And their governments and their population is going to go, yeah, tax me, so we can make sure this doesn't happen to us. But now you have all these weapons, and again, who are you using the weapons on? You use them on non-white people around the planet. And we help out because, we are in the military, be it black, brown, or yellow, or in the American military, European militaries, and we're helping to kill other non-white people. So it's a race war. and we don't even realize it.
It looks like somebody from the top wants some of these weapons to be used as soon as possible since they've been storing them for so long.
You're right. And again, if you train and prepare and stockpile, eventually you want to actually see how that stuff works. You want to test the things that you've created. Because you can go in a little, open field and practice, but eventually you want to actually see what it does to flesh and bone.
Well, that's
yes, sir.
Yeah.
Any question people who practice racism? Oh, I was just going to say the white people who practice racism are the best dictators on the planet. I heard the word dictator thrown around, and that's usually what I tell white people when they.
And they're also the first ones to blame, accuse everybody else of being dictators. But then you have to think about it. If you go back in history, who placed those people into power? And again, like you said, when you called that program, and you did an excellent job. They're the ones who are doing it. They put someone at top to basically keep their people at bay with money and trinkets. And then those people may stay in power for 20, 30, 40 years. Until obviously they upset the West, which means white, and it's time for you to go. We have decided that the G8 has decided you must die.
Yeah. Well, another thing that is annoying. I was going to say one of the things that annoyed me is that when I talk to black people about racist white supremacy, and I give them the evidence, they immediately say Illuminati, or Rosicrucians, or all these Bilderberg group, all these different organizations, and I said, but they're all run by white people. No, they're just niggas with money. I mean, Obama is part of that team. You see the video on YouTube, And I'm like, okay, let's say Obama is part of this. It is still a white organization. Obama doesn't have equal say in what they're doing. It's still a white organization. That whole Illuminati, and I hate that stuff. It's a waste of time, and it causes confusion, because that's another tactic a lot of white people I've learned are using now. They're talking about these, they say elites. They say the elite. Like, are you familiar with Alex Jones?
Yes.
He's one of those guys that talk about, the population terroring, and he mentions everything about racism and white supremacy, but he doesn't call it racism and white supremacy. He said, and the elite, led by Obama, and that can further confuse black people. I know some black people who listen to Alex Jones, like Alex Jones is the truth. Alex Jones is the actual truth to these people, and I'm just saying, like, I can't. You know what? There's no point in discussing racism and white supremacy with a non-white victim. You talk to the people perpetrating racism and white supremacy.
Right. And I've noticed that as well. Like, again, I campaigned for Obama back in 2008, and I'll say even to this day, 70 to 80% of those people in that room were white. And I think for the most part, if most black people are honest, no one even thought about Obama in the beginning, because like, there's no way this country is going to put a black man in the White House. But again, that's just more to confuse us. But again, it was white people who put them in, regardless if they sincerely think they're good people or not. Is irrelevant. But it was white people who got them to the point where black people say, "Oh, okay, let me get involved." But even those people, and I still have contact with some of these white people, and again, I think it's hard for them to go there, meaning white racism, white supremacy. They'll say, "Oh yeah, the elites," like you say, the top people, but it's hard for them to say the problem is white people. And they'll talk about this and they'll talk about that, but it's hard. And then also, what I experienced at least, a lot of these white people, literally, their spouse was still a Republican. He's just confused, or my mother, all these things. Well, I just call him confused. And I say, and I'm thinking myself trying to bite my lip, because these people are trying to get this man in the White House. But at the bottom line, I'm thinking, okay, but guess what? Your confused husband or your confused mother, is supporting the other side, which I looked at as more dangerous. But now, like you said, good cop, bad cop, you got to remember they're both cops. So my views about president.
That's one of the things I've learned. I'm glad I've learned since since listening to the C.O.W.S and reading the works of many of the guests of the C.O.W.S is that good cop, bad cop thing. That is very, very dangerous, especially if you're confused. If you're confused, but at the same time you're willing to challenge a white person about their racism, but then you're gonna have another white person sit there and be like, listen, no, what you're saying, it can't be. You know, they immediately they'll come at you like that, like a 10, and you just oh, your brain just starts oozing. And I've seen, I fell victim to it. Mm-hmm.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right.
I said a good white person. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they do that because they know their place in white supremacy, so they're not going to really go against each other, even though it may look like it.
No, they would really agree with you. I have yet to talk to a single white person that agreed with me there's a system of racism and white supremacy. You know, even with the questions I ask, they always deflect, but they will never agree with me. They immediately go, nah, I think it's just about money and this elite. And then, like I said, they'll bring up the Illuminati and all this other stuff, fraternity. Or they start bringing up a whole bunch of stuff that, in the end, you're still naming white people.
White people. They're still white people.
You're still talking about white people. There's a Facebook page called Nature's Mind. He's always, this page, I suspect he's a racist, a suspected racist, but he's always talking about essentially racism, white supremacy, but when you say it's racism, white supremacy, is no, but he'll put up all these pictures of white people stealing or just doing these foul things to the world, but it's not white supremacy? The problem is not white people? Okay, you don't have to call it white supremacy, but you can't admit that the problem is white people?
Because I think the most person, it's hard though. I think it's hard for them because, again, even if they quote unquote don't think that they're part of the problem, it's like, okay, now with black people, brown people, yellow people, red people, we've been used to being told, said bad things about us. The media does it, movies do it, cartoons done it. We're used to people talking crap about us. White people aren't used to that. You say white people, okay, maybe the Polish. I grew up in the 70s and 80s, 70s and elementary, 80s and high school, and the Polish were the only ones that got jokes against them that I knew of that were white here in America. But the bottom line is white people aren't used to being talked about. So even quote unquote the good white people, they get uncomfortable. Even if you're talking about the ones that they admit that are bad, they don't want to hear it. It makes them uncomfortable. And then we start going to the level of, well, is there such thing as a good white person? Then they really get frustrated, angry, and
they don't want to talk about it. Or to talk.
They try to go out their way to convince you. I'm not. Like one thing on my job, white people will always sit there and be like, if there's such thing as racism, how come I'm down here struggling? I got the same job as you. How come I don't got a big? They start over exaggerating. How come I don't got a big mansion? How come I don't have this? If there's white supremacy won the world, blah blah blah, on all this nonsense. And I look at him. I said, I learned an expression years ago watching a movie, and this powerful white man was ready to just murder a whole bunch of people to save a whole bunch of other people. And his reason, and the only thing he said, you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. And when I heard that, I knew what it meant, but I didn't know what it meant in the context of racism and white supremacy. But now I understand what it means when I see these white people who complain that, oh, they're not benefiting from the system of racism and white supremacy. What's the term? Racial sacrifice.
Yep.
They have to sacrifice a few of their own. Yes.
Yep.
They have the Joe the plumber, this white guy complained that he, oh, Obama's gonna push the little guy to the side, this and that and the third. These white guys complaining about losing their jobs and losing their homes. But that's what white people do. Look at Braveheart. That's like, when I talk to white people about racism, I say, look at the movie Braveheart. Remember how the English was treating the Scottish? That's how all you treat us. And that's the example I give them. The idea that this English king could just come down, and there's something called prenupta, where the English king, must be the one to deflower a woman on her wedding day. and his right as king to do that. And I explained that to him. I said, that's what white people do to everybody who isn't white globally. And, of course, unfortunately, a few of you got to be, you know what I'm saying, sacrificed. A few got to pay the price because they don't want the world to know that they're actually being mistreated. They don't want non-white people in the world to know they're actually being mistreated, that there's a system in place that only benefits white people and is not there to benefit them. But that's like, as you said, white people
the system would fall apart.
Yeah.
If everybody,
yeah,
I mean, think about it. If everybody woke up and realized what was going on, then the system would fall apart. And again, with them being, what, 10%, roughly 10% of the world population, you know, if we don't have us to help them, then there's no way they can stay in control. I mean, they can use brute force, but then they would have to recruit every single white person who's been masquerading as a good person, you know, your next door neighbor, your friend, and your buddy, to actually now have to be an armed guard to populate, you know, to control the entire planet. You know.
That's
so,
right.
You know, again, it's a lot easier, you know, to control the planet when the planet thinks that everything's okay. If not, you literally have to have a soldier, you know, on every street corner around the globe.
Yeah. That's refinement.
The worst, what is it? The worst trick the devil ever played is convincing people he doesn't exist.
Yep.
Yeah. The best trick the devil ever played is convincing the world he doesn't exist. Yeah, and that's exactly what the greatest trick the white supremacists ever pulled was convincing non-white people white supremacy doesn't exist. No?
Yep. It's kind of like back in the day, they used to say about the mob, or there's no such thing as a mob. Well, you know, now it's no such thing as global white supremacy. And who's the first one to say it? White people. And then when black people hear white people say it enough times, then also black people start saying it too. You know.
Yeah.
So, that's part of that. Well, it's you know, you're making yourself a victim. That's because I am.
You know, what the thing that shocked me, well, it didn't shock me, but that was the funniest about what they said is their example of black racism being other white people telling them that they couldn't be as explicitly racist as they wanted to about black people. That's their example of black racism.
Yep.
And I wanted to really get in on that point. I was like, yes, I really want to get in on this and explain, because that's part of the refinement. And I really wanted to get into it. And when I explained to him, when I said I said, well, because white people realize that it's tacky to say nigger out loud, so they come up with a new way to say nigger without saying nigger. And the moment I said that, he jumped on me. He jumped on me immediately.
I was
and
amazed
that's what
they allowed you to stay on so long. I mean, they were talking over you, and I guess they can lower your volume, you know, raise theirs on you know, they have to control that. But I was amazed that they let you speak as long as you did, because you got your point across. And like you said, for any non-white person that was listening to that program, you know, hopefully you planted a seed, and you know, that seed will germinate, and you know.
Well, they try to pride themselves. One thing about them, they try to pride themselves as being a very honest show. So their whole thing is, well, look, we won't. If you've got something to say and we put you on air, we're not one of the people that'll cut you off and try to not let you say what you got to say. We are on the show. If you got something to say, well, let you say it. So I said that's one of the things I liked about the show. That okay, people could call and be honest. You know, I've been heard shows before when somebody call and try to get a point across, and they'll just get hung up on. But these guys would let people call and whatever the case may be, whether they agree or disagree. So I said, okay. And like I said, it wasn't my first time calling the show. You know?
Yeah, they seem to know your name.
Yeah, like I said, we've done that numerous times. We've gotten into that back and forth, and it's always been because they just clown black people. You know, like I said, the first few times it was more of a casual thing, but then I'm like, they just clown black people, and it's like there's no reason for it. And the littlest things they would just turn into racist bits. That show, the clip he played, the show he was just playing. They was talking. One of them has a child. They was just talking about the children's songs that he has to listen to all day. And if you listen, they immediately, with the little saying you hear them doing, that's because they was listening to these children's songs, and these children's songs immediately evolve into something racist. It happens like that all the time. The littlest things will turn into a 20-minute racial bit. And it's like that all the time, every day. Mm-hmm. All the time, man. It's just, I was already frustrated, and I'm hearing this. I said, you know what, I need to vent. Because right now, I'm not liking white people. And hopefully they'll give me an opportunity to get on the air and say what I got to say to white people. And thank you, I'm glad that they did. You know?
They indicated their racism when he explained that he wanted to say something that he couldn't say. So I mean, what did he want to say about?
What could he have said that was worse about black people? That's what I was trying to figure out.
Yeah, that's all I was like, what could you say? They were saying like, oh, what did you have a problem with? I'm like, what I didn't have a problem with.
He wanted to say some sort of racial epithet. That's what he wanted to say over the air, I guess. I mean, he has to talk about that he kept referring that if he said it, he's going to get fired. So I have to assume.
I mean, the only thing worse you could have said is exterminate black people. I mean, really.
Yeah. That's it. The only thing that's probably the only thing they don't say is I hate black people, or actually use the word nigger and straight. They said the word nigger on air. They said the word nigger on air. Yeah, they've said it on air. They said nigger numerous times on air, but they've always said it in the context of they might be talking about a racial discussion. Like they might read an article about something racial that might happen, and then they'll say the word nigger, or it's always in context of what they're talking about, but they never use it as an insult towards somebody. You know what I mean? They never said that, oh, stupid nigger. They never.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll say something like, or they'll be trying to say an example about something and use the word nigger, but they never like attacked somebody with the word, or actually openly said, I hate black people. They said they hate everybody else. They'll say they hate Asians, all these other people, all midgets, people with disabilities. They'll say they hate all these other people, but they won't say they hate black people. And his reason for saying that, because, as you said, apparently we have the power to stop them from saying that. That's his logic.
White people have the power. There's other white people who will say you're not being very refined, therefore we're going to suspend you for several months, but don't worry, we'll have your show back on.
Yep. White people don't get fired; they get transferred.
That's just, like with the Don Imus thing some years ago. Don Imus referred to the black females at the Rutgers basketball team as nappy-headed hoes. They fired him from the station he was on at the time. About a month or two later, he ends up on another station making more money. Making more
money. It's like being a cop who shoots an unarmed black person. Traditionally, within 6 months to a year, they get a promotion. And I did a paper in school about police misconduct, and that's what I kept finding.
Well, if that's the case, when he said that he can't say what he wanted to say because he gets fired, then if you're going to be codified, the answer is, or I guess the rebuttal would be, no, you're not going to get fired. You're going to get transferred. You're going to get promoted.
You're right. So I guess he didn't want a promotion. You're right. He was comfortable where he was, and for whatever reason, he didn't feel that he deserved a promotion, so he's not going to say what he wants to say.
The only time they got fired twice.
When Neely Fuller comes on the show, I hear him come on any show or any program, he always asks for a recording or, like an archive or transcripts of the program. And the reason that he gives is so he can make sure what he said was as accurate as possible in order to, refine or be more codified himself. So for me, I feel like the thing we should be thinking about is how to be more codified, because there was a lot of things said that it doesn't take 15. It doesn't take 5 minutes, or it doesn't take 20 words to just cut some of the things that they were saying off. It doesn't take like a whole big grand introduction and then let's get into the point. That could have just been a lot of things that were said on that show could have been dealt with, 5 words or less.
Like, for example, I would get fired if I said what I wanted to say about black people. The correct response, I guess, would be like, oh, well, who would fire you? What color is that person that would fire you? Is that your example of black racism?
Yeah, right.
You're right.
You're absolutely right.
Question. That's right.
Wait,
Wow.
is that show that was made up that the word called people black people Mondays or something like that? You said. Did they make that?
No, that's an actual racial slur. Mondays for black people. They say, normally you hear white people say, I hate Mondays. Well, they somehow turned that into, I hate black people, without saying I hate black people. And there's a lot of terms. I wish I could remember some more off the top of my head, which everyday terms you hear that these white people use. And like I said, they'll take any little thing, any little activity black people are doing, they will turn that into nigger. As I gave the example earlier, they was watching a news broadcast, and apparently some black woman was knitting. All of a sudden, now they're knitters. Oh, let's make sure the knitters, keep the knitters out of the neighborhood. They spent 20 minutes saying knitter, knitter, knitter. Another time, they played a video of a black male, apparently, who was out of his mind, who beat a car up with a golf club. Now they're golfers. That's the game white people play on a daily basis, 24 hours a day. And I didn't realize that. Like, I didn't realize it at the time listening to the show until I started listening to the Cows and realized white people do this thing 24 hours a day. This is what they do all day, every day. Just
like Nellie Fuller said, make a profit. Racism is a profit.
Mm-hmm.
It was a one of the members on Gus's Facebook page. He has a blog thing, and he had something about with the baggy jeans hanging off people's butts, and he said apparently some people call it sagging, and if you reverse it, it's niggas. It's black people predominantly who are wearing. There's some white kids doing it too, but it's for the most part black people with their pants, basically falling down. And, black people call it one thing, and I'm sure black people start to use that word too, but basically he was saying that, white folks call it sagging, and if you figure out it's niggas.
So basically, he was saying that he was going to get fired. He really wants to say, the reason why black people in Africa are not rising is because they're a bunch of niggers or something like that.
Yeah, that's the thing they do. They're like, white people say
inferior or they're a bunch of niggers.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, white people say they invented the wheel.
Black people are genetically inferior. Yeah, really want to get down to it is that the reason why black people haven't done anything in Africa is because black people are genetically inferior. They cannot self-govern themselves. Non-white people are genetically inferior. The Indians are mentally and genetically inferior. So
basically
really,
the bell curve, or Dr.
Exactly.
Shockley.
Yeah.
That's what's going to come out. That's what you're going to start seeing come out explicitly in the conversation and any day now. When they start saying that explicitly and it's not didn't somebody say we were better off as slaves or something like that? I mean, it's going to happen more and more, and that's when I think you're going to see the black people. I just think that when you talk about race wars and things like that, and how Nazi Germany, how Dr. Wilson always try to point us to Nazi Germany. From what I'm reading now, it seems that's the course of things. It's like when they really start being able to say what they want to say, that's when they'll be able to start doing what they want to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, they already take credit for inventing the wheel and fire. If you listen to these people talk, they say, "Oh, we invented the wheel, we invented fire. Africa is 1,000 years behind white people," and this and that and third. Just I've listened to this shit I've listened to this noise for so long. It's getting very frustrating because I've already realized a long time ago that white people are 1,000 years behind us, not even hundreds of thousands of years behind us mentally. just anybody with a basic understanding of prehistory, or what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say archaeology, but
Just think about all the different things that are invented. I mean, gunpowder came from China. Noodles came from China. It's what we give we say spaghetti, we think of noodles, where actually noodles came from China. Spaghetti sauce, well, before you have spaghetti sauce, you have to have, tomatoes. Where did tomatoes come from? The New World. Corn came from the New World. We think of vodka. Vodka comes from potatoes. Well, before, they may have had vodka prior, but traditionally vodka made of potatoes. Potatoes came from the New World, So
when I
we
think
think
about
of rice, we always think rice came from China, but actually it came from Africa. But the bottom line is they've basically gone around the world, learned what the people were doing, and took it and ran with it. And now we're all scratching our heads going, what the heck happened?
Well, when you think about everything, well, at least when I think about technology in general, with the cars and the airplanes, everything else that white people have invented, they really don't make any sense unless it's in the context of white supremacy. Did you know what I'm saying? They created a society where they needed a bunch of workers. They wanted non-white people to be nothing more than labor. And at the same time, they realized they got to keep them happy. That's what I said. I had the discussion with the same radio program. I said, your toys, all you invented was toys to keep the masses stupid. You invented cars so it's easier for them to accept the fact that they got to go to some job that they don't want to go to or work for some white person they don't want to work with. You invented television to control them and keep them busy and distracted, to at least put them out of their misery. Then you add alcohol and drugs to the mix. You got a perfect slave. You can't kick a slave around and not give him something his whole life. Eventually, he's going to turn around and punch you in the face. So you have to give him these things. If you think of, when I think about it,
but now we're at the point. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
When I think about it in general, has anything white people have invented really has ever helped humanity collectively, people on the planet Earth? At least I haven't seen it. I haven't seen anything that they invented or built that's helping make humanity a better thing. You know what I'm saying? Nothing is making life easier to deal with this nonsense, but it hasn't made humanity, the world, a better place, only for them. It hasn't helped nobody else but them. Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
We're at the 3-hour mark
okay.
for the program. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I wanted to also make sure I got in because Charlton Heston was brought up. Charlton Heston, in addition to being the star in the first 2 movies in the Planet of the Apes franchise, Charlton Heston, we were talking about ammunition and all, president of the National Rifle.
I think I got disconnected. Charlton Heston, Planet of the Apes, I think they are known. Charlton Heston, National Rifle Association. He's known for that in his later life, but earlier, Planet of the Apes. Context of white supremacy, we will be back latter part of, well, I guess, a couple days. We'll be back. I was thinking it was earlier in the week. We'll be back just in a couple days. Check the TalkShoe page for the time. I'm trying to get the white man who has more information about the death of Oscar Grant on the program. Just check the TalkShoe page to get the correct time for the broadcast. It should be this week. We'll also have Brother Polite on the program this weekend. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into the program. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Context of white supremacy, signing out.